I wanna take you for a ride. 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 I wanna take you for a ride.
All right, hello internet. Welcome back to the Gaming Academy with your host and truly headmaster of the Gaming Academy, GQAzndood. Welcome. We are back now here, back on schedule. Last week we had a study hall of Monster Hunter Wilds, and instead of having the normal class, we just hung out and played some Monster Hunter where we talked about video game and nerdy stuff. Well, we had also the audience jump in and participate on our hunts in class. So you're always welcome to do that, and we always announce it when we do. So, but now everyone's back in the faculty. Everyone is back in class, and hopefully you're there buckled up because, man, we're going to take you for a ride. If you didn't hear that song, if you have never heard that song before in the arcades, I do not envy you, but it is amazing. But anyway, class, welcome, settle in, pick up your books, grab your notebooks and ready to go. Tonight, we are switching it up. Not only are we talking about one of the greatest fighting games of all time, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but we're also going to be diving deep into Switch 2 rumors in a full-on roundtable discussion. Plus, Nick, the AKA Tragically Elite, has returned to us here at the studio. Quick Bytes in the Rumor Mill will be his target for tonight, while Blazing Ace Nelson returns with the tech, learning about the Switch Axe. Pun intended indeed. So, because let's be real, we're all about switching things up tonight. So whether you're here for nostalgia news or the monster hunting tips, you're in the right place. Grab your snacks, hit that follow button, and let's get this class started. So without any delay, let's introduce the faculty here. As you know, I don't do this by myself, and without these guys, I'd just be kind of a talking head on the internet. But let's welcome the what do you call this? The instructor for PE class, aka the man on the street, the blazing, the ace, the Nelson.
What's good, class? Good to see you. We're back for another week. This week, oh man, we've got so much in store. I'm really looking forward to this week's discussion, not just because of everything that's happened over the intervening couple of weeks since the last time we've had a full faculty, but also just what we've got to look forward to.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, always. We got a sequel with one of the consoles coming up, right? So that's always a very exciting title. We're going to keep it. Sorry.
Yeah, we've got console sequels, and also, I mean, just talking about that is also going to provide a very good launching point for us to discuss what happened with this recent Nintendo Direct.
That too as well. And just a little disclosure, we're going to try to keep everything factual tonight. No jokes, because there's enough of that already out there today, except the usual debauchery we always have here at the studio. But speaking of debauchery, the guy that brings us the news from his, from was that, I always forget Cyberpunk City. What is that? Because I'm not a gamer.
Night City.
From Night City. I feel like Night City was like a Grand Theft Auto City, but anyway, he was gone, but now he is found. That Nick, the AKA Tragically Elite, has returned to us.
Man, talking about Switch, I didn't realize we had so many Switch things, and then you threw me in the Night City thing. That's one of my favorite video game cities. So
right,
you nailed it. You nailed it tonight, man.
Oh, welcome back. We missed you last week, but we made it. We made it.
Yeah. Back. Yeah, since I missed it and I wasn't able to be online because the internet where I was not great. How did everything go with the gameplay with Hunter and run around with everyone?
Pretty chill. I think we had a couple people join the hunts, actually. We had Shinonami and also Sonoris, right? We had a lot of Essence join us. And it was great. I learned a lot. And it was
Well, that's
Actually,
wicked, man. Sorry I missed it, but I'm sure we'll do another session. Hopefully, something I can jump on as well.
yeah, no, for real. No, I'm totally down with that as well. If you also want to, if I'm not here sometimes, you guys are more than welcome to do a study hall without me as well. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, lots on the agenda tonight. I saw the syllabus for this evening. Of course, we're also, we're going to play a little bit of catch up, but also kind of get straight into it. So why don't we just get started on that, guys? You guys good with that?
Yeah,
Let's go.
All right. So unfortunately, guys, there's no check this out this week. I'll be back next week. We got some other stuff lined up for you, but let's just get going with, of course, you're probably why 90% of you guys are here for this week in gaming history. Oh, that's the 8-bit version.
yeah.
All right, we'll update that a little bit.
No, gaming history. Gaming history.
That's history. That's the past. Now this is the present. Yeah, that's better. That's much better. Anyway, so we didn't do last week, so scrap that, right? We didn't really do that. Also, it's up to Jagos and Milo in the chat. But if it's your first time here, this week in gaming history, just like it says, we cover things that happened for this week from Sunday to Saturday. So in this case, we'll be covering March 30th all the way to what? April 5th?
Yeah, April 5th.
April 5th. So let's just get going. All right, here we go. All right, first one here for tonight. Of course, on the 30th, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 came out on the Dreamcast in the year 2000. That was like the mark of the millennium. Wait, that's a different game. But same company. All right, so guys, I know this is one of the greatest fighting games of all time, so I would love to hear your introduction to this game and kind of like how you came across it, your experiences with it, because as you know, last year, the community tried really hard to get this back as a modern title, as a collections, and we finally did it. And I feel like we did that as a community. And so it's fantastic that we have this.
Marvel lives.
Marvel. When's Marvel? Right? That's like the thing.
Yeah, this time it's definitely a matter of when. But my first experience with Marvel 2, definitely, of course, I'm a big arcade rat, SoCal, like you'd say damn near the birthplace of the modern day FGC. And, when Marvel 2 first debuted in the arcades, like the day that I heard that machine had gotten, installed at the local arcade, as soon as class let out, I was sprinting down the street to get there. Stepped in, and yeah, I was kind of thrown for a bit of a loop once that game was powered up, and I heard, that now beloved theme. But I'd have to say my most abiding memories with Marvel vs. Capcom 2, outside of the arcade pitch perfect port on the Dreamcast, were actually the days where I would be in the arcade, just like we'd have a crowd around it. We'd have quarters all lined up on the console by the sticks, and one of the guys that would be playing on this cabinet consistently every day that I got there, Monday through Friday, without fail, was not just something of a local boy, but also a tournament contender and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 Evo champion. I got the chance to get washed by Duck Doe.
I thought you were gonna say Justin Wong for a second there, but he was kind of everywhere. Yeah. It's Justin Wong. Come out of nowhere.
But I mean, it was so cool just getting the chance to actually see, a lot of the major traveling competitors actually come through San Bernardino. They'd sit down, they'd play, we'd all chill on the afternoons that they were there, and getting the chance to actually learn a lot of what I know about Marvel vs. Capcom 2 from, not just getting tips and pointers from Duck, but also facing off against him, taking my losses. I mean, I eventually managed to get a round off of him with Cammy. You remember how wild my cami is.
There you go.
But yeah, that was where it all started.
Right on, man. I mean, like I said, this game is a milestone in fighting game history. So,
and you telling that story to Ace, like honestly, the image I had in my head is like Karate Kid. He said San Bernardino. I'm just imagining you as like a young Karate Kid having to face off in the All Valley tournament of Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Not that far off.
No, it's not. That's why, like, right in my head, I was like, I get it. You painted a picture with words. I appreciate it.
He's got his red bandana on and everything, you know, ready to go.
Crane kicking his way to victory, or at least one round.
Ready to go.
I will take my rounds where I can get him.
How about you, Nick? What's kind of your story with Marvel 2? What's your history with it?
I honestly don't have much of a story or history. For me, I was more of a latecomer to the series. I didn't get to play it back in the day. There wasn't a lot of arcades on Whidbey Island for me to go to. Like, the only arcade we really had was like the Cruisin' USA on the ferry, right?
Hell yeah.
So I didn't have much of a choice, and we've talked before. There's not a lot of chances for me to have like a wide range of consoles growing up. One of my friends had a Dreamcast, so it wasn't until much later when I started working at a retro video game store that I started collecting, playing, and appreciating games. So you could say like I had some kind of weird nostalgia for it despite never playing it. The sprites, the animation, the music. Like, I got really into Third Strike, you knew that, but I never got into Marvel vs. Capcom. I wasn't much of a comic book fan, but I appreciate it a lot now. Especially like looking back and seeing where it landed in, video game history. So it's cool we're talking about this. Just really appreciate what it brought to the table, despite the fact that I never really played it back in the day.
Yep. Yeah, this game has a lot of like awkward history, from my opinion. I think when it was first released, people had mixed reviews on it, just because it was so far departure from the OG formula. It turned from a 6-button fighting game to a 4-button fighting game, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was the big one. That was the big change. Also, combo routes were different. The music was atrocious in comparison to the other games that were out. Now we love this game because of how it reminds us of that. But when it first got released, people were kind of taken back by it and was like, "What is this? This is not exactly what we were playing before, right?"
I mean, the music was so much of a shock to the system that later on down the line, after the Dreamcast copy of the game had released, there were already people in the community making homebrew mods to change out the music for Dreamcast copies of Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Yeah. It was just a big change, and so people weren't used to that. But now, of course, we recognize, Gonna Take You for a Ride, right? All the jazzy themes and endings to the game. But yeah, that's memorable. To
your point, like to bring it up, not to like step on your toes, but that's a really good point you just made. I just want to highlight that, like, people being upset about how different it was and the need for dev teams to take risks. I mean, we've talked at length before about the change from Street Fighter 2 to what eventually Third Strike became, but the new challenge, like everything that they came out with, like the jump to the third iteration, like very different. People hated it, but they tweaked it, they worked on it, they went back to the drawing board a little bit. Like, they had to do something different, and you see that with dev teams nowadays. It's that weird catch-22 we have as fans. Like, you want what's familiar, but you want new innovation as well. So where are you going to draw the line? And hindsight helps here, but just something to think about.
Yeah, and I do think devs need to innovate, because otherwise it gets stale. Imagine working on the same game over and over again, right? Nothing different. It would get boring. So, but yeah, this is also one of the first games, fighting games in Capcom to switch over to the Naomi board, because before this it was just a standard sprites. And then they switched to the 3D Naomi. That's why the backgrounds of the Marvel 2 have 3D backgrounds, just for that reason. But yeah, it was just a big shock. Now it's like a cultural icon, right? People have never forgotten Marvel 2, and Marvel is just a big part of our gaming history and also the fighting game community. So I think that's fantastic. And to have the fighting game collection back, thank you, Capcom. We appreciate you. And
we appreciate the community.
Yeah, thanks for the fans.
Shout out to Scorpio. Good to see you tonight, Andre.
All right. So some of the other games here that we've also coming up on the 30th, or released on the 30th. Resident Evil on the PlayStation was released in 1996 in the US, not Biohazard, but Resident Evil. Crimson Seas 2 on the PS2 in 2004. Resident Evil Outbreak on the PS2 in 2004. A game called Raw Danger on the PS2 in 2006 in Japan. That is arguably the sequel to Disaster Report. If you guys like quirky, weird games, that is one of them to pick up for sure. Final Fantasy 15.
That title is just so awesome and hardcore. And then I looked up the gameplay for that before we hopped on. Not what I expected.
And you got to make sure you include the exclamation point in the game in the title of Raw Danger. FF15 came out on the PS4, Xbox One, 2016. That was a big one. Warriors All-Stars on the PS4 and Vita in 2017. And a personal favorite of mine, Dredge, came out in 2023 on pretty much everything that's playable on video game consoles or platforms out there. Also in 1998, Sony Online Entertainment is formed by smashing together parts of Sony Online Ventures and Sony Pictures. They went on to create releases of EverQuest, Star Wars Galaxies, and Champions of Norath, which is one of the better action RPGs out there. So awesome. All right. Well, I see a highlight here for Crimson Sea 2, Ace. What you got for us?
Now, Crimson Sea 2 was a interesting one for me because it was one that, it was a game that I had no clue about when I first saw the packaging, when I came across it at a GameStop, actually. But I'm like, Crimson Sea 2, what is this? I pick it up and I see that Koei had a hand in it. That already had my attention because Dynasty Warriors. So I pick it up, I take a look, and I'm like, yo, this like underground little sci-fi gem is kind of baller. And then I find out that of course it's part 2, and I start looking for the first game to see if I could find it, only to realize that the first game was Xbox exclusive.
Yep, that's true. And actually, I was wondering why I didn't have a copy of the first one. Then I realized it was only on the Xbox for a while, and then we got a taste of it when 2 came out. So
yeah, I was about to say, one of the real nice things about Crimson Sea 2 is that they actually do a pretty good job of recapping the events of 1.
Of 1, yeah.
Not just in like gameplay cinematics, but also Also, with like encyclopedia logs in the game. So, when you like meet up with certain characters, you get new entries and you actually get to view, cutscenes from the previous game, showcasing their like major events and how they impact show and how they impact this new adventure that he's going on.
Just so few games that do that too. Like I remember when I booted up Yakuza 3 for the first time, and they had the backstory for the game, and I'm like, oh cool, I'll just like get caught up with everything. It was like a movie, dude. It was like 8 hours of like every cinematic. It wasn't just like a breakdown synopsis. They put the entire cinematic like universe basically ahead of it. I never thought it would end.
Attention to detail, that's great. And here's the thing too, I feel like Guilty Gear did the newer Guilty Gear titles did that really well, but I am personally guilty of not watching the story mode of Guilty Gear, but they did that for us. Like, if you want to know the story and lore of Guilty Gear, they made a whole cinematic story mode. That's like a what is this, a novel, right? Like a visual novel in the game built in. So it makes more sense than just playing arcade mode over and over again. So I think that's that extra love and care that devs do for us that some people don't appreciate, right? So but they do that just for for the sakes of it. So love that. I wanted to talk about Resident Evil Outbreak, but we're gonna put that later on in the show. But real quick thing about Dredge. Guys, I know Andre said you've heard of Dredge. Dredge was like a silent release for me. Like, I didn't know too much about it. I saw a little tugboat on the screen, right? And as I was playing this game, like as I saw gameplay for this game, it ended up being like a fishing / puzzle simulator, right? Just like what's on the screen over here. And it's actually pretty fun. It's a very chill game, but it's also got its dark side, among, like everybody else here. The narrative to this game is very interesting. It's almost like The Old Man in the Sea mixed with the, what do you call, like Bloodborne. So you would ever guess from a game called Dredge, right? But I think the more I played it, the more I was compelled to play more. It was like reading a slow reading book. It's really interesting because everything about the game is mysterious. You're like, this fishmonger guy, I was like, you're sus. And then the other guy I talked to, you're sus too. I don't sus. Everything in this game is sus. And as I played it, the more I was like, I want to know more. I want to know more. So I think they did a really good job. It's the Team 13, the guys that did Worms, which is very interesting. They just did a very good job of captivating me to keep playing this game. And it's just a very simple, basic game. So you're a fisherman simulator with a little bit of like exploration and narration and storytelling, which is pretty cool. Right. And Nick, I don't know, did you have any footage for Raw Danger by any chance?
I can pull it up because I saw it earlier. It's in my history.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
I don't even know like how to explain. Like it's not the most exciting thing to watch.
All good. So if you guys have played Disaster Report, and Disaster Report 4 did come out on the PlayStation 4, it's just about like the series of events that are happening in the city and how like you have to rescue and kind of like survive through like a disaster. In Disaster Report 4, it was like an earthquake. I think it was similar to this one as well. And then there's so much drama happening in this city to this normal guy. And Raw Danger was just a sequel to the first Disaster Report game in Japan. And I was wondering if they renamed it to Raw Danger in the US. Is that accurate? Or was it just Raw Danger Part 2? Or
I think that's right. That was just the US version. Yeah.
I think it is a US version because they still started changing their names for the Western releases.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not even going to try to go through the Japanese name either.
But apparently, guys, this game is really popular in Japan. They created 4 of them.
Action adventure survival game for the PS2.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. If you want to play something quirky, something different, definitely Disaster Report series is pretty interesting. And keep in mind it is dated, so you're gonna be probably frustrated with the very simplistic features and quality of life. Like you're gonna be like, "Where's my radar?" or something like that. It's gonna be like, "No, we don't have that here, dog."
Figure it out.
This is old school. This is old school.
Hey, according to like Google users, 96% of people liked this video game.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's weird. It's oddly entertaining for what it is, right? It almost reminds me of like a 3D version of those point-to-click games, right? So it's like that. It's like in back then modern form. Anyway, moving on to the next one. We got plenty more to go here. All right, celebrating the next day, 3/31 in 1998, the legendary StarCraft on PC came out, guys. So this is actually one of the 3 collector boxes you're able to buy. Guess what the other 2 ones look like? It's either the
other faces.
Yeah, exactly. So you get to pick which one was your favorite, and you bought that box, right? And if you're rich, you bought all 3. So that's usually how it works. But yeah, I would say the RTS of like the millennium. This thing is like still inspired by so many other RTSs that are unfortunately not released anymore. I think it's a dead genre in my opinion. Just because I haven't seen it. It is.
Yeah, well, according to like, there's been a lot of people Microsoft side that I've heard who like the lack of money put into the RTS genre is because they view it as a dead genre, I guess I'd say is a way to say it. I think it's the lack of innovation with it. That being said, I know that I would play a new StarCraft. I would play a new Warcraft. I think there's still plenty of an appetite for it, but it's the lack of innovation. There's been plenty of like 4X games that have come out that I've played that I've enjoyed, like Age of Wonders 4, pretty solid. Civ 7's having some issues right now, but you and I played 6. Like there's still very much like nearby style games that I think there'd be an appetite, but it's big name. Like you put a StarCraft 3 out or Warcraft 4 out, and I believe it will sell. It's just a matter of how much money do you have to put down as a company to get that dev'd out. And they might just be seeing that as a bottom line thing. It might not make the money it needs to bring out this kind of title. They need, you know, not GTA 6 money, but they need like Monster Hunter Wilds money to afford building a game like this. And there's not that much of a market for it, as much as I love it.
Yeah, no, there was a new RTS that's being released, and they innovated it by taking away the APM or APC, APM. I think it's APM, right? You guys know what APM is?
Actions per minute.
Yeah, actions per minute, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how you gauge your efficiency in these type of games, right? And so what they said, and I feel like this has already been released and announced, and if someone in chat can tell me what game it is, the main focus of this RTS was you would just build the economy for the RTS, and then you would build the units, and then the units itself would just have its own AI and fight. Right, and the way this would be like strategic is that you would counter whatever they would be making. So if someone made infantry, you'd make tanks. When they start making tanks, you make helicopters, right? You make helicopters, you make infantry with bazookas. So that's kind of like that, and the AI would handle that itself. And I think that was kind of clever to kind of put it that way. It definitely reduces the APM, but also it changes the mental stack of what you have to think of in playing an RTS.
Yeah, there's certainly a reason I played it, and part of it was that base building and time management kind of thing. I play those kind of games on their own. I play time management games, so there's like, you know, eventually that came out. So RTS was a root of a lot of different games I played. And Jagos in the comments were talking about how Blizzard isn't quite the StarCraft guys they were. For sure. I mean, that's been a conversation for a while, that Blizzard's not the Blizzard we know and all this stuff. But there's rumors flying around right now that Blizzard's shopping it around to different teams, different dev teams to take that IP and make a different kind of game. I heard there was like NetEase and NCSoft are approaching them potentially. Not to say it's going to make an RTS or anything like that, but there is an appetite, and there's plenty of companies that want to give it a shot. Whether or not it will be an RTS, whether or not it will be Blizzard themselves, remains to be seen. But it's just to say, like, there's options out there. Why can't we have a new one?
Yeah, speaking of like, I mean, StarCraft. Aside from talking about its future, what's your guys' history with the game?
Bro, with StarCraft, kind of limited, largely because I played, I played Warcraft. Like I was all about Warcraft 1 through 3, like that was my jam. But when I saw StarCraft come out, and I got the chance to sit down and watch one of my friends play it, just to kind of get a feel for it, see what was going on. I got interested in it, and I forget what happened, but I eventually just hit that point where I just wasn't able to play it. I think that was probably after I moved, so I just like wasn't living near any of my friends that actually had StarCraft anymore. So I just kind of moved on from it. But I did keep an eye on StarCraft and StarCraft 2.
But Ace, you can compete free over the internet, according to this.
I played a lot of StarCraft. I know, like Jago said, it's his jam. It was pretty much one of the games that got me into PC gaming in the first place. Like one of my first PCs in our household. This really got me into gaming as a whole, was just because of StarCraft. So my love of Red Alert 2 and StarCraft, and then eventually Warcraft 3, and I played some Warcraft 2. StarCraft was the game for me that I played nonstop. I'm not saying I was good at it. It was pretty shit, to be honest, looking back at it. But I just enjoyed the world. I loved sci-fi worlds. I thought it was super interesting. I thought it was pretty well realized and lived in. The world building was solid. And it's carried through to this day. It's one of the reasons I'm still really into Blizzard games, was just because of this title. And you and I, James, we've talked before about StarCraft 2, how good it is, and it's just not a lot of people played it as well. This game, it was my jam. Absolutely, I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same with me. I one of the few that I know among my gaming circle, right, has played Warcraft 1. Enjoyed it, even though it was a very slow-paced RTS game. When Warcraft 2 came out, game changer. It was amazing, right? It was playing from Street Fighter 1 to Street Fighter 2. That's kind of the best description I can have for my FGC heads in here. StarCraft, I think, really tightened up everything Warcraft 2 couldn't do, right? And it added like a third faction, right? Because it had orcs and humans. Now this one you're doing 3, which is super cool.
And each one's like really fleshed out too.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. That's the best part is like, oh, you don't like that style? Try this other like race, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, this is more my speed. It's super cool. And the fact that this, like, to me, StarCraft is like the Street Fighter 2 of like RTS, where like everybody else copies Street Fighter to make their own game. And StarCraft is that game for the RTS world. I want to fast forward a little bit to StarCraft 2 because I was like, what, 10, 15 years late in playing StarCraft 2, like I told you guys. Played it last summer, and I couldn't put it down. Like, and I was just playing single player. The amount of effort of the narrative and like the gameplay and how like tight the game felt and like just overall the experience with the game, it was probably one of the last like single player purchases where I wasn't compelled to buy DLC or wait for a season pass. I felt like I was playing a completed game, right, for what I got. Keep in mind, I bought the battle chest, so I had to like buy the expansions as well. Oh yeah. The thing that got me, that really got me to like, wow, this is actually they put a lot of thought in this game. Not only like you said, Nick, back then there were 3 fleshed out, character races that you can pick from, units, and they can select. The expansions itself focused on those differences in the story mode. So, I was thinking it was like going to be like Brood War, where it was like just more units, right? But kind of like an extension to the story. Not only was it an extension to the story, the gameplay mechanics of the story mode emphasized on the expansion itself of the Zerg. So the Zerg, like the story mode was like Zerg, and so all the way like they like carried on until like the pacing and the game mechanics really introduced you to how different the Zerg was to the Marines. And the same thing happened to the Protoss too. And so I felt like I was literally playing 3 different games because of the high emphasis on the differences of this game. But at the same time, I was getting more value from the same game that I got. So it didn't feel like I was like spending extra money. It really felt like I was like playing 3 different games at the same time. And then, like I said, Blizzard's really good at this, and in no way or form did they make me feel like, oh, I have to buy this, right? It just felt like it was a good value for their own experiences for each game by itself. So I think that was a good one.
For sure.
And these days.
That's steep to every aspect of the game, and that's why, to me, at least StarCraft 2 or StarCraft, and by extension StarCraft 2 is so like iconic, is because all of the units were so unique. Obviously there's going to be counters for them and resource management around it, but there was just something about like the lines that they had became memorable. I remember some of my first ringtones was trying to get the sound files on my little flip phone just so I could hear like, Battle Cruiser operational, just somewhere in the back of my head kind of thing. It still like sets off those little fireworks. Like, yeah, it still stays with me this day. But I mean, we could talk about that nonstop. we can move on.
We have a StarCraft episode for sure. All right, other games that came out that day: Double Dragon for the Neo Geo in 1995. I'm assuming that's the fighting game version. Doom 64 on the N64 in 1997. Ian Livingstone's Death Trap Dungeon on the PlayStation in 1998. Saga Frontier on the PlayStation in 1998. The House of the Dead for the Saturn in 1998. 1998 was poppin', baby. Axiom Verge on the PS4 in 2015. Hyper Light Drifter on the Mac, PC, and Linux in 2016. Quantum Break on the Xbox One in 2016 in Japan. Star Ocean Integrity and Faithlessness on the PS4 on 2016 in Japan. And Persona 5 Royal came out on the PS4 in 2020. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff on there. All right, Ace, I see a Double Dragon here for you. What do you got?
Yeah, the Double Dragon fighting game on the Neo Geo. Firstly, this one was actually based. This one was actually based loosely on the movie that came out back in '95 with with Robert Patrick. Let's see, it was Robert Patrick, Scott Wolf, Mark Dacascos, and Alyssa Milano.
Hey, I feel old.
Right? And just as a side note, so glad to see Mark Dacascos still at it. He was amazing in John Wick 3.
Isn't he like Iron Chef headmaster?
Mhm.
He did everything, man.
Right? But yeah, the Double Dragon fighting game was a really interesting game because, you know, if you're coming off of playing something like Double Dragon 5, The Shadow Falls on like the Super NES or Sega Genesis, you know, it's still that sort of cartoony, you know, kind of Street Fighter 2-ish game. But then, of course, you hop on the Neo Geo, and Neo Geo fighting games have their own entirely different flavor compared to their Capcom counterparts. And you see like the different characters that are featured in this game. You've got the boys, you've got Billy and Jimmy, you've got Marion as an actually selectable fighter. Let's see, Chung Fu, Obobo, Burnov, you know, some classic Double Dragon characters. But then you've got characters like Amon and Rebecca, who are new to the roster, new to the lore. But you actually pick them up in this game, and they're actually really pretty solid to play. Like, you know, as a Neo Geo fighting game, you know, you get into this, and you know, if you've played stuff like Street Fighter, if you've played KOF, then you know it's hard. It's like stepping into your own backyard. But the unique mechanic with Double Dragon is that your character's super gauges are tied to your health. The more health you have, the longer it takes for you to build up your supers before you can pull them off.
That's a little balanced mechanic there. It's interesting. Technically not canon to the rest of the universe, though, right?
What's up?
This is specifically for the movie. It's like non-canon to the rest of the Double Dragon universe.
Specific to the movie.
Okay.
But also, you know, one thing that was in the movies was how, well, in the movies and also in the cartoon, was how Billy and Jimmy actually transformed into these like superhero forms when they were fighting. And you can do that in this game as well. And changing into those different forms literally gives Billy and Jimmy like brand new movesets.
All right, they're installed. You got installs, huh?
Yep.
I'm the main man. Let's go. Love it. Yeah. What? Also, I don't know, chat. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's no consistency between the way Jimmy and Billy looks like in every Double Dragon game. Sometimes Billy is blonde. Sometimes Jimmy is blonde. So it's kind of funny, actually.
It's more of a mantle. The mantle of Billy.
It's more of a mantle. All right, what do I got here? So I got Ian Livingston's Death Trap Dungeon. Do you guys remember Death Trap Dungeon, kids? Probably not. No. Well, it was like, I would say an action RPG back with like Tomb Raider. You know, just like as you see in the screen here, it's rough. It's not great. If Tomb Raider had baby with nightmare creatures, right? Yeah, Trap Dungeon. I think not so much on like this game. This game's pretty generic in my opinion, but the way it was marketed was very interesting. I don't know if you guys remember this ad or not. I know we're not doing Yo Check This Out, but this was actually the ad for Death Trap Dungeon, and this was a 2-page spread.
I remember the ad.
Right? There's only one thing more torturous than playing Death Trap Dungeon, which is like a kind of a burn, isn't it? Like, this game sucks.
Yeah, it's a self-burn. You don't see that really often.
Yeah, but also, like, I mean, you can clearly tell this ad was made for like teens, right? And also, it's mature, 17 and up, right? But yeah, this is the other portion of that ad as well, right? Is not playing it. Actually, playing it's pretty bad as well. So, yeah, Eidos, remember those guys? So,
been warned.
Smoking Scorpio remembers.
Yeah, somehow, some way, whenever we bring up stuff in gaming history, it always ties into later things in the news. Let's keep going.
Yeah. All right, moving on. But yeah, that's a good part of gaming history right there. All right, 4/1 April Fools, guys. This is real. This is a fact. Mortal Kombat 3 came out on the arcade in 1993. And can anybody in chat tell me what their motto was that's always displayed in Mortal Kombat 3 machine? We're going real back here. We're gonna have to dig into your memories here without cheating. This statement was always presented to you on the demo reel of the game. As you guys are figuring that out, I would say my first experience with MK3 was at a bowling alley in Chicago, where I just heard this machine super loud, you know, like finish him, and then the really bassy music and like Liu Kang dying and stuff like that, like that stuff like that. I look over there, it's an MK3 machine, and you know, I walk over and I'm like, oh wow, this is clean. What I did notice that was different is they were running, and they also had really, really strange combos that I've never seen before that really copied Killer Instinct. So I was quite shocked and amused, and I did not go bowling that night. I just played Mortal Kombat 3. So that was my experience with MK3. What about you guys?
For me, MK3 was like Tips and Tricks magazine. Like the first time I saw it, it was literally, you know, I went to the store, I saw the Tips and Tricks magazine, saw, you know, Mortal Kombat 3, and considering the day it came out, I thought it was an April Fool's joke, because you know how them boys at GamePro love their pranks. But I actually started reading through it, and I was like, okay, this actually, you know, again, this looks kind of clean. You know, you see Liu Kang made a comeback. Sub-Zero's looking different, so I'm definitely intrigued about what's going on here. Didn't see Scorpion on the roster at all.
That was the big one.
But saw them two cyborg ninjas. You know, Cyrax and Sector, and then
spoilers.
And then I go to the bowling alley.
Oh, bowling alley.
Just I go to the bowling alley that day after school, and no, it wasn't the bowling alley. It was the pizza place right by the bowling alley. But I go to Maxwell Street Pizza, and I see the Mortal Kombat 3 machine there, where Mortal Kombat 2 used to be. And I'm just floored. I like run up. I'm checking it out. You know, I'm seeing the characters running, doing all these fast, flashy combos, and I think that probably led to literally my first actual, the first actual gaming magazine purchase of my own that I made, because I had my allowance, so I bought Tips and Tricks. So I was the kid around campus who was walking around with all the fatalities and all the combos. Everybody on campus was coming up to me.
That's the guy that knows the fatalities.
Yeah, I was Mr. Fatality.
Yeah, there you go. That's not a good nickname these days, but that's good. That's good though. But isn't that wild, chat, to be considered like you're that guy that did the fatality and knows the secret moves in the arcade? It's stuff you'd never hear these days. It's kind of crazy. What about you, Nick? You got any experience with MK3?
No, not really. I mean, my bowling alley back when I still lived near Chicago was. We had an MK2 machine at the bowling alley. So after like Little League, we go there, and I was part of my brother and I were in a bowling league as well. We're just sports. I remember there was a MK2 machine, and eventually they replaced it, and there was talk of getting the MK3 machine. Instead, we got a Neo Geo, like one of the system selects, and I remember playing Sam Show a bunch. So that's just what I played. So that and Baseball Stars, like, I think.
Yeah, Baseball Stars.
Yeah, so like that's all I played. I didn't get a chance to play 3, really. I remember when the game came out on like SNES, and I played at a friend's house, but that was about it. I didn't have a lot of history with it.
It would have been really funny if you said Neo Geo with Double Dragon in it.
Yeah, right.
That would have been hilarious.
No, just Sam Show for me.
All right, I'm gonna read through these to give you guys a moment to figure out what the answer was to my riddle here, and then by the end of it, I'll ask again. Other games that came out on the first, Cool Spot on the Genesis. One of my favorite Genesis games is Cool Spot. And if you're, you know what Cool Spot is, you're old like me. All right,
Make 7 Up yours.
Yeah, there you go. That's like more 2000s, but yeah. Raptor Call of the Shadows as an Apogee game I wanted to feature on the PC in 1994. All right, 1080 snowboarding on the N64 in 1998. Saga Frontier 2 on the PlayStation in 1999 in Japan. Def Jam Vendetta on the GameCube, PS2 in 2003. Kuon on the PS2 in 2004 in Japan. The Goat Simulator, PC on 2014, Ragnarok Odyssey Ace on the PS3, PS4, and Vita in 2014, and the Destiny Killer, supposedly, Outriders, came out on everything back in 2021. Couple tidbits here. In 1976, Apple Computer Inc. is founded in California. Shout out to all the Mac versions of the games you had to buy separate parts for. Ugh. And in 2003, Square Co. Limited, LTD, that's right. And Enix Corporation perform a fusion dance and merge to form Square Enix, their final form. Huge news as their libraries speak for themselves. That was quite the merger because those were like two titans of RPGs, RPG makers. So yep. Fantastic.
Huge.
All right, so hey, you guys got to tell me about this 1080 snowboarding because I'm a cool boarders guy.
The only reason I highlighted it is because that was the first game I owned on 64. I remember the day we got our Nintendo 64. My mom, we saved up all of our money in one of my dad's old like cigar boxes. You know, we'd like painted it. He was just like, I don't need this anymore. You guys can have it. Put your coins in. We saved a bunch of money up and we put it towards an N64 when it came out. You know, just for that like Christmas. So we got that. I believe. I can't remember. I think we got Mario Kart and 1080 snowboarding, if I remember right. I know we had 1080, and that was like the game I played the most until we started being able to buy other games, man. But I still hear the menu selection music in my head. I remember picking the boards. At the time, I got really into snowboarding too, so it was like the perfect time to like have that game. I could never for the life of me pull off a 1080. Like I tried so hard. The same kind of thing where you go into like the learning mode to learn all of your combos and your fighting games. I had to do that in 1080 to figure out the combination to like get the 1080 down. Like I got 720 just fine, but I couldn't get 1080. Like the button combo with that shitty Nintendo 64 with joystick to try to spin it enough with the R button presses to time it right. Like I could just never do it. But it was one of my favorite games to play. Not a lot of like replay value once you unlocked like all the stuff. When you go over to friends' house, it's not like they want to play that. You want to play Mario Kart, eventually Smash Brothers, GoldenEye, stuff like that. They don't want to play 1080 snowboard, but it's still a near and dear to my heart kind of thing. I loved it so much.
Right on. Yeah, for me it was actually a lot of my friends when they bought their 64 because I was holding off on getting a PlayStation because I was a Nintendo fan. So I was like, oh, I'll wait till N64 comes out. All my friends for some reason just bought Snowboard Kids. And I was like, why is everybody buying this game? Isn't that good? So I just remember thinking that in my head back in the day. But yeah, 1080 was like the, like Deep Impact and what is that other one? Armageddon, right? 1080 was the Deep Impact to Cool Borders. Cool Borders Armageddon, right? So that's kind of how it was.
Two giant post-apocalyptic games side by side.
Correct. Ending the game industry. Speaking of game ending the industry, Def Jam Vendetta, man. I love this game. Ace, so what do you got? What do you got for us, though?
Yeah, Now, Def Jam Vendetta was my introduction to the EA Sports big lineup of games. Before NBA Street came out, but like this one is one that actually one that my brother picked up, and I come in, I head over to visit him. I come in, I sit down, and I see him playing this game, and I'm like, what's going on here? What is this? And then I kind of look back up at the screen as my brother's like, hey, check this out. He points to the screen. I look up and I'm like, why is DMX in a video
game? I'm pretty sure I've said the same thing when I was fighting that mid boss.
Why is DMX in a video game? But then, the music kicks in. all this that's happening on the screen right now. You know, the music kicks in. You know, everyone gets in the ring. I'm like, oh man, they actually got all these guys. They got Method Man. They got Dub C, Omar Epps. You know, all these hip hop celebrities in this, in this game, in this really solidly put together wrestling game.
Yeah. And that's, I think a lot of people don't understand. It's actually like an Aki wrestling game, right? Like with the characters, because
anyone
one of
who
my
played any of those wrestling games like immediately recognized the like jank feel to it a little bit. You're like, I recognize this.
Yeah, because that was like WrestleMania 2000, I think, on the 64 was like the last Aki game to come out on the N64, and so switching over to the GameCube.
Was it that or No Mercy? I can't remember which one came last.
I think it was WrestleMania 2000. No Mercy was.
I played No Mercy, I think, a little bit more, but yeah, they were very similar.
Yeah, but yeah, this game is awesome. Not only that, Ace, I think this probably one of the most engrossing story modes in the wrestling game ever.
Man, oh man, like, like if there was one other story mode that I could think of that actually like really pulled me in, especially in a wrestling game.
Yeah.
Shut up, Rumble Roses.
That needs to be made as well.
But I mean, between that and also like the special moves, the special finishers in this game were absolutely freaking wild.
Yeah,
I think that's would say they were ludicrous.
Nice.
Yes, they were.
I understood that reference.
Well played.
Kick from the hood.
Oh, he's blazing. All right. Speaking of blazing, let's move on to the next one over here. All right, 4-2. What we got? All right, so I wanted to feature this game, Defiance, for the PC, PS3, 360, that era, in 2013. All right, chat. Before I move on, did anybody get an answer to my Mortal Kombat question?
Oh, pop quiz, hot shot.
No, nothing. I think Nick saw it. He paused it for a second, and I saw it.
I did.
I was looking, but the statement that you would see. This is a good Mortal Kombat trivia on a Mortal Kombat machine. Was there's no knowledge that is not power. You would see that all the time in the arcade machine. You're like, it's trying to talk to me here, trying to give me some Art of War stuff, you know. But yeah, that was a really fun one.
Read, nerd, go to school.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of nerd, Defiance was probably one of the nerdiest things that have come out on this day, just because this game was released in conjunction with a TV show that was released in like the Sci-Fi Network. I don't even think that's around anymore.
No,
right?
It went away, then it came back, and I think it's gone again.
Yeah, so like, look, Smoking Scorpion said the Defiance, played that one and watched the show. Yeah, this was one of those games that were like a tie-in to a show where I'm not sure if the events in the game like happen in conjunction with the show, but I think you watch the show for like the lore, and then you play the game as like a side story of the show. It's kind of.
Yeah, that same era, there was the game Falling Skies that came out.
Yeah,
kind of did the same thing, the whole like sync events kind of thing.
So I mean, it's cool, it's clever, but does it work for the gamer that doesn't pay attention? Probably not. And most of you in chat probably don't even know what Defiance came out on the 2nd of April. So, and that's kind of like the lesson here, right? It's like, cool idea, but like, will it appeal to the masses? So no matter how cool the idea we got, will it sell to the average gamer out there?
Yeah, I think it was trying to bridge that multimedia gap before a lot of these franchises became multimedia giants like they are today, and before the streaming wars. Because this was pretty early in the 2010s for this to be coming out and doing things like this. I remember it was like at the time it felt like it was super innovative, was thinking outside of the box, didn't catch on, and we're just like, okay, it was kind of cool, whatever. But nowadays, like as we've seen, how many people watch like the series over and talk about even broader scope of going into the lore and the world of it. Like there's opportunities to do stuff like that again and like tie it in. And like we talked about earlier, Ace, there's so many times with skins and stuff. Why not the game and show itself, right?
Yeah.
It's not that big of a stretch, but doing it right, doing it well, and finding people that are interested in both. Because for me especially, like I go between like, oh, I'm in a mood to play some games right now, and then I'm in a mood to like catch up on a bunch of shows. It's hard to like keep up with both, right? And there's already a problem for devs trying to like monopolize or figure out how to like get more.
Oh my god, the skill tree though.
Games. Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's like, honestly, I love this kind of stuff. Like the ideas are cool, right? But this to me, this came out at the wrong time. Just like that survival game I was talking about, the hunting one where you're Evolve, just like Evolve. It came out in the wrong time. I feel like if this game came out now, it would be done a little bit better, and it would be more, what's the word? Lack of a better term, acceptable. To be like, oh, there's a show, and then we have a game you can play with it too, right? Now, sometimes a game can be limited to a mobile game, unfortunately, right? But I feel like it's more acceptable now than ever before to have crossovers from medias. So.
And if there's one thing we can say about the downside of ballooning development costs and the need to spend so much on marketing, is that so many of these dev teams now have a competent marketing department. It'd be a lot easier to sell this to people, or at least we'd have more competent people behind it, trying to get that message out there or make this a thing. So the industry's grown a lot since then, for better or worse, right? Yeah. So yeah, interesting thought.
Honestly, the way I'm looking at this right now, and I'm like, this looks like Crysis and The Division combined.
I mean, they could have easily, think of it that way. We were talking before about Division. They could have done a Division TV show. The story was interesting enough with that world. You could easily do a crossover, talk about survivors in a tournament that happened in the game, and then talk about it like the characters in the game go into the TV show kind of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously not with our gamer tags, but
put it on streamer mode. All right, other games that came out on the 2nd. One of my personal favorites on the Super Nintendo, Aerobiz Supersonic. Guess what kind of game that is, chat? On the Super Nintendo in 1993 in Japan. Final Fantasy III in America, also known as 6 in Japan, came out in 1994 on the Super Nintendo. Metal Slug 2 on the Neo Geo in 1998. MDK2, guess what those letters stand for, in the Dreamcast in 2000. Earth Defense Force 4.1, The Shadow of New Despair. The Japanese love those long titles, on the PS4 in 2015 in Japan. And for some reason, they re-released the Oregon Trail on iOS in 2021, but it's like a modern version, so I'm totally down with that as well. Totally down with that. Ardace, I see a highlighted Final Fantasy III here on the Super Nintendo. What you got for us?
Oh, I mean, come on. It's Final Fantasy. It's Final Fantasy III, aka 6. It's by and large a no-brainer. Remember how I mentioned that collection of games that my brother had borrowed from his friend on the football team? We had Super Mario RPG, we had Chrono Trigger, we had Secret of Evermore, we had Secret of Mana, and this.
So you named 5 games, I think, maybe 6, right? And I want to tell chat this. All those games were all $80 each back in the day. My man's got money.
Yo, Scorpio has a fantastic question, guys. You want to drop the knowledge on why is it 3 or 6?
I'll let Ace do that.
Actually, yeah. Simple reason. It's listed as Final Fantasy III in the States pretty much for the sake of continuity in naming, because the first Final Fantasy game that released in the States was, of course, the original on the NES. But the second one that was released in the States was that one right there was Final Fantasy IV in Japan. So there were a few games in the series that hadn't released in the States before we got that next one over here. And, similarly, we didn't get what was supposed to be Final Fantasy V over here. But when 6 was brought over, it's okay, we're dealing with Americans. We're dealing with people who haven't had access to the rest of the series. So let's just try and keep the let's try and keep the continuity there, and that's why it jumped from Final Fantasy 3 to 7 once it hit the PlayStation.
Marketing and naming conventions, just trying not to confuse people. Back in the day, it was a lot more difficult to get information on games, and it was a lot more difficult to get imports, especially. They didn't know if Final Fantasy would do that well in the US, to be honest, right? So when they were bringing those games over, they weren't 100%. They started to see some dollar signs and some success, so they brought some more titles over. And for a lot of people who are long-term fans of the series, and I found this out after the fact because I didn't get to play these games when they first came out. But when you talk to people about their favorite games in the series, it generally comes up that it's like 6, 7, and then a mix of other ones. But those ones are usually listed at the top. So this was a great one to bring over. They knew it was a solid title. It just happened to be the third one in the US. So localization being what it was back in the day, that's just what we got.
Yep, that was a big thing back then, guys. So if you're like watching an anime back in the day was a struggle. It was totally different when it got overseas. So you guys have it good with Crunchyroll. Man, back then we had to like
years before we saw anything. Years.
What's a voice actor in America for anime? That wasn't a thing back then. You know, we had fan dubs is what we called them, where fans would actually dub the anime in English for us if you didn't want to watch it in subtitles.
Right.
Yeah. Now this Final Fantasy 3/6 was probably the most epic Final Fantasy of that era. You know, like it was a big game. As soon as you thought you were done with the game, no, the world changed, and then you played again. So it was amazing from my experience. So good stuff. Hopefully it does get a remake someday. It's going to be a very, very big game, in my opinion, if it does get a remake. So super cool.
I mean, the Pixel remaster was already doing some pretty solid numbers when it released a while back.
See that? All right, next one, 4-3. This is like Ace's Day. What's going on here? Warriors Orochi 2 on the PS2 coming out in 2008 in Japan. I told the story to chat about how I was trying to get a copy of Orochi 1. I don't remember how I got my copy of Orochi 2, unfortunately. So, but yes, Ace, I'll let you jump the lead on this one.
Yep, Warriors Orochi 2, definitely, another one of those that, I was already neck deep in playing the first one, having a great time. I saw that 2 was getting ready to come out. I had to import it. It was a foregone conclusion. So imported it, and it very much felt like a sort of Extreme Legends expansion for the first Warriors Orochi game. But it told the continuing story of how heroes from both the Three Kingdoms and Sengoku era were just stuck in this mashed together dimension. And Orochi was going around doing his thing, looking for the strongest warriors to see who could face him. But this one also introduced a few additional original characters that weren't involved in the first one. Like I think Benkei was involved, but it was definitely Yoshitsune Minamoto was one of the new characters added, and he was so broken.
as they normally are when they're added to a game like this. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I don't remember too much about it, but I know this series is definitely like the celebration of both Samurai Warriors and Dynasty Warriors games. Arguably one of the last PlayStation 2 games to be released, right? Because this was nearing the tail end of the PS2's lifespan.
Yeah.
And Koei Tecmo did a good job of like squeezing every bit of graphical power out of the PS2 to make this game work. So I'm very proud of this game for sure. Let's pull up some gameplay here while I read off the other ones. All right, some other games that came out on this day. Ultima, the False Prophet on the Super Nintendo back in 1992 in Japan. The Breath of Fire on the Super Nintendo in 1993 in Japan. The Simpsons Wrestling on the PlayStation in 2001. And a little gem called Battle Block Theater on the 360 in 2013. I wonder what Behemoth is up to these days. Also, speaking of 2013, Disney shuts down LucasArts' development division and cancels its own then upcoming games. While they would be resurrected later in 2021, this marked an end of an era. Which is sad because the next game about to reveal is one of those games.
Yeah, yeah, yes, it is. I remember, like,
hilarious,
I love LucasArts games growing up,
Yeah,
as well.
same.
Like after I got past my RTS phase, like it was all about LucasArts and seeing that like logo and playing those games. So yeah, when Disney bought them, I forget what year I think they bought them the year before, so they had it for less than a year before they just were like, "All right, LucasArts, you're done, you're gone." That being said, to be 100% fair, I remember like the games had kind of gone downhill those last few years, so like it was rough anyway. But then Disney stepped in, bought it, and it was just like, "All right, gone." And everyone's like, "My childhood."
Yeah, unfortunately, and fortunately, well, one of my most cherished games on LucasArts was The Dig on the PC. Was a point and click adventure game. I think it was a unique IP, but it was like super enthralling and super like it was just super fun to play, in my opinion. It's like King's Quest, but in outer space. It was super cool. And that was one of the more LucasArts titles I could think of coming up. Speaking of LucasArts titles, we'll move on to the next one. Oh, Jedi Power Battles came out in April 4, 2000 on the PlayStation. You like beat 'em ups? This was the beat 'em up at the time.
And the fact that this game is coming back.
Yeah, it's not dead yet. But yeah, man, this was the game to play because episode 1 had come out and all you want to do was like destroy droids, right? That's exactly what you wanted to do. And I love me some beat 'em ups, and this was like the game. There were not a lot of Star Wars or Jedi beat 'em ups at the time. Also, this is probably one of the first ones. I got my copy at Toys R Us for $39.99. I remember because I had two $20 bills, and I gave them to my mom, and I was like, "This is the game I want." And that's my story with this game, and the rest is history. So, I don't know if you guys have any history with Jedi Power Battles, but this was a good one to add to the library.
Heck yeah, no, it's me and a couple of the guys from school. We'd spend some weekends sitting down trying to see if we could 1 credit clear JPB, and we each literally. It was taking it back to, the old school Double Dragon games where each of us would actually pick a character that we would dedicate to using as we tried to play through the game. So, my friend Bruce was he was the Obi-Wan main. I was actually, it wasn't Mace Windu, actually. My main, I think it was, oh God, what was his name? But it was the orange dude, Kit Fisto. But we each had our own Jedi that we would try and play through that game with, just to see, just to challenge ourselves to see, if we'd be able to actually, 1cc it.
Can we also talk about the fact that Mace Windu's lightsaber on that cover art's
blue? It's not purple. Yeah, it's not purple. Yeah, I was actually a Plo Koon main. But yeah, I unfortunately I don't think I have a copy of it, but I did pull out this masterpiece.
Oh yeah, not quite the same.
Not quite the same. Not quite.
Where's a remake of that?
No remake of that. No remake of that. But there is actually a fan-made Star Wars fighting game that is. I think there's a beta out for it right now. Look it up. It's called Force Combat.
Okay, give me that with an expanded roster on the Tekken 8 engine.
Let's be real.
Don't play with my emotions.
The best Star Wars fighting game is the alternative mode in Episode 3 on the PS2. That was the best Jedi fighting game out there.
Oh man, I don't know if we want to like fighting game. Yes, I'll give you that. But if we want to talk like multiplayer or at least like user. I loved playing the multiplayer in Jedi Academy. The
fact that so long?
You can create. Oh, it's a modifier you can pick up in the game. But Jedi Academy, so by extension Jedi Outcast, would have the multiplayer with
Yeah.
so many maps. You can like do your own Jedi person, and you'd have double-bladed lightsaber, dual wielders, single lightsaber users with the 3 different styles. Like it was so much fun to run around in there, and that actually in that one had dismemberment, like you can chop off their arms and stuff too. It was so much fun. Plus it gets super crazy because you get people that put points in force powers, and they'd have like super jump, and then someone would like force push you off a bridge or something when you're like mid-air. It was chaotic, dude. Like I'll have to pull up like some multiplayer of that sometime. I had so much
What's fighting game balance? Nothing.
Nothing. There is none. It's a joke.
No, that's cool. And I think, like, honestly, when I played Jedi Survivor, right, I thought, like, I never would have thought the Dark Souls formula worked really well in a Star Wars game. And so that was, like, my eyes really opened up to that. Like, man, this is actually pretty cool that like, combining Dark Souls with Jedi, like Star Wars, like the Jedi, at least portion of it, it made a lot of sense. Because it's very like tactical, right? Otherwise, like one hit would kill you. Like it reminded me of this game, honestly.
Here we go.
You know,
so this is the Jedi Academy, but people like you can emote like bow to each other, like some kind of chivalry. But then the people just like spin around trying to kill with like random attacks. And the thing was, is you would do like your light, medium, or heavy attacks depending on which style you're using, and then you'd have to aim the mouse. So you're trying to like do the move and then turn it too to like get someone so they don't parry it. Yeah. But it was so much fun just because there'd be so many people on here, and there was like a little bit of a community behind it. Yeah, but then like look at all these people just running around. It was chaos because you could just randomly like throw your lightsaber and see a lightsaber fly into your screen and take you out. Like, honestly, it was so crazy.
They could probably reenact this with the Battlefront stuff. You know, because this reminds me of Battlefront when you're the Jedi in Battlefront. So,
man, I would take this chaos with like the Jedi Survivor like graphics and stuff. I'd have so much fun playing it.
Dope.
Yeah, I also think like, and this is kind of getting sidetracked, but we'll jump back right onto it. Koei Tecmo did say they expressed interest in using the Star Wars license to make a new Dynasty Warriors game, so that'd be kind of interesting.
No.
Yeah. He did it. He won. All right, other games to come out this day: Armored Core 3 on the PS2 in 2002 in Japan, Doom 3 on the Xbox in 2005, ESO: The Elder Scrolls Online on the Mac and PC in 2014. Persona 5 on the PS3 and PS4 in 2017, and a little weird game called Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission on the Switch and PC in 2019. Also in 1975, Microsoft Corporation is founded by Gates and Allen in New Mexico. It had 3 employees, and I can hear Windows 95 boot up music in my dreams. I wish I had that prep for you guys. By the way, we'll just use the GameCube. Oh, that's not the GameCube.
That is not the GameCube.
That's the epic GameCube. Can you imagine loading up your GameCube and that makes that sound? Like, whoa, man, relax. relax. All right, we got some quick ones here. Armored Core 3, Ace, what you got?
Yeah, Armored Core 3, again, a huge leap forward in the series compared to 2, because, when Armored Core 2 first released on the PlayStation 2, it was still very much like, it still very much felt like you were playing, the earlier Armored Core games, but with a new coat of paint. But 3 was where the series started to advance, not just in its storytelling, but also in, your mech configurations and, even just with the control setup and the UI, it started introducing, more optional parts and, other components like inside parts that you can use for your mechs. Mm-hmm. But the game, the game played faster. And this was also the first game in the series that actually offered branching paths depending on which missions you took. Oh,
yeah, that's big.
One thing I will say too, like looking at this gameplay, I do love the like lock on screen where your point of view is. So you can, I know it's for like being able to lock onto these things in all of that. I just like that look of it. As you can see it move. That's really cool for something in the PS2.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I forget whether it's no, there is actually a secret code where you can switch to a first-person in-cockpit view while you're playing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's pretty big for a game like this. Yeah, it gives me Dead Space vibes for that UI, like that like realistic movement in front of the core. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. All right, Nick, you got Persona 5 up here. What's up?
Persona 5, my first real dive into the Persona series. This was one that I was sold on the style of the game, and I can't speak enough about how great the UI, the menu options, just the style of the gameplay in this game, because it grabbed me from the get-go. It was just something I just was not expecting. I was hearing really good things about it, right? And not having played any of the old Shin Megami Tenseis or any of the other Personas, really. Like, I played the Ultimax fighting game for 4, and I'd heard good things about it, but just like the style that this game is steeped in, the music, the story, like all of it, I was sold instantly. This was another one of those things where I bought the game, I ended up loving it, I got the steelbook for it, and it took me a while to track it down, but I finally got the collector's edition, the Take Your Heart edition, later on. I just loved the game that much, and it turned me into a fan of the series. It's the one that did that for me. So I got Royal when it came out. I'm looking forward to see what they do with any kind of follow-ups to it. I know they're doing some remakes right now, but I think this will kind of always have a place in my heart, not only as the first, but just man, it's the reason I got into Metaphor, was the style in this game. It looked like you saw the UI, the menu options in Metaphor, and I'm like, oh, that's Persona 5 vibes right there for me. I have to have it, kind of thing. So yeah, man, I really dig this title. Like I said, I took a chance on it. It wasn't my normal thing, but there was something that spoke to me.
It's one of those titles. It's one of those titles, you know, no matter what your opinion on it may be, it's definitely a title that emphasizes that, you know, visual design goes a long way. Art direction goes a long way to, you know, preserving a game, or at the very least making sure that it isn't dated.
I mean, not only that, it gives the game its identity. You know, like I see this as good and bad. The good is, of course, it's super appealing, very eye candy, very good to the eye. The bad part is now this is expected from all their RPGs. You know, like this team at least, right? They're going to be like, well, they did it with Metaphor. Imagine like a sci-fi one now, right? Very futuristic. That'd be super cool. But now they're under pressure to be like, well, and why doesn't it look like this? Because you guys always did it this way. Kind of like Vanillaware, right? When you play a Vanillaware game, you expect that same Vanillaware art from those guys. So I think it's a good thing at the same time, but definitely expectations, the bar has been raised for sure. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have my expectations about it too, but that's one of the reasons it made a bridge you can build on it. That's why I like Metaphors so much. It felt like the next evolution of this style. Like, just looking at this, I can fully admit it's a little chaotic. There's a lot going on, right, with the UI, but it's the style with the music and everything, which I've muted here. It sells you a lot better than what I'm explaining right now, but that's why I like Metaphor even that much more. It felt like an upgraded version of that. It's not as like loud, clunky, but still has style, so they can build on it for sure. But yes, absolutely, I agree, there's an expectation. And
I also think it's different when you're playing it. Like, you know, we were watching it here on YouTube, right? But like when you're playing it, it's just so more in your face, and it's just a different experience. So play for yourself. I think there's a demo out there, right? Check it out for sure.
If not, talk to a friend that owns it and borrow it. I've been trying to get one of my buddies to play this for a very long time. He's a big fan of like the turn-based Final Fantasies, and I'm just like, dude, you gotta play this game. Like, just give it a shot.
All right, down to our last day on the 5th of April. Rockin' Cats on the NES came out in 1991 in Japan. This was one of the rare Atlas games that was released on the tail end of the lifespan of the Nintendo. Think of Ninja Gaiden and Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers combined as far as the gameplay goes. So that's very interesting. Yeah, and it was my choice because we were lacking on retro, and I remember playing this game myself because I remember like Tom and Jerry and like SWAT Cats. And I kind of got like the SWAT Cats like art style with this, with a little bit of Tom and Jerry in it, so it's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have video up for Rockin' Cats?
I can pull that up.
All right, other games that came out on the 5th is Starfleet: The War Begins on the DOS in 1985. We got, of course, Aerobiz, the prequel to Supersonic in Super Nintendo in 1992 in Japan. Gitaru Man on the PS2 in 2001 in Japan. Tropico on the PC in 2001. Got it right here. All right. We got Enter the Gungeon on the PC and PS4, on Xbox One in 2016, and Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga on the Xbox One Series X as well in 2022. Yeah, Rockin' Cats, simple fun. Like I said, doesn't that remind you of like Ninja Gaiden, like walk sideways and then a little bit of Chip and Dale? Yeah, so pretty straightforward game. Like the characters. Look at that! Look at that! What is that? Chicken? That's a real Birdo fight right there.
That extendo punch.
Yep.
Oh, we turned a different color.
Oh no.
But yes, guys, that has been the week in this week in gaming history. All right, now the thing that everybody's been looking for, waiting for, because we've been lacking so much of it for the past 2 weeks, is
Sorry.
all good, man. So, if it's your first time on this channel, Quick Bytes is the portion where we have various pieces of information on the internet or news of video games here. Of course, hosted by Nick. I'll just let it rip, and we'll go from there. How about that?
Yeah, let's let it rip. Hey, everyone in chat. Sorry I wasn't here last week. I went to hang out with some family. I'm back. So we're just going to cover last week's news. Same as always with the news, just trying to keep everyone abreast of what's happening in the industry, and maybe that cause a little bit of conversation for us here on the faculty and for chat. I don't know if you have heard, but Game Informer is back. We were super sad to see that go. Say what you will about like the later parts of its life. I know that a lot of us, myself especially, had to sell a lot of Game Informers when I worked at GameStop and a lot of subscriptions. So I had a little bit of a love-hate, but I always appreciated the news. I mean, physical media, print media has been kind of dying. But hearing that Game Informer was leaving was sad. So the good news is that Game Informer is back. There's a team that has stepped in and they're resurrecting the brand, and they are hiring back 100% of the original team. So they're bringing back all those staff members that lost their job. Now, the odd news on this, and a lot of people have started to catch on, is it was acquired by Off the Grid's developer Gunzilla Games. I don't know if you know about it, but Off the Grid is an NFT shooter. So, oh boy, we'll see what the future of Game Informer has. They've already come out. I believe the editor-in-chief, McNamara, has already said that it's going to be independent. It's not, Off the Grid doesn't have a hand in that kind of thing. They just Gunzilla Games owns Game Informer now. But at the same time, you have to kind of wonder, that's going to be tied to that team. If Gunzilla Games goes under, what happens to Game Informer again, kind of thing. So kind of a back and forth, so something to think on. YouTube, this next piece of news is something that's right up in your alley. I know you're playing Monster Hunter Wilds. So many people are. In fact, it has just crossed over the 10 million mark for global sales, and that is in 1 month. That is a significant portion of games. If you haven't heard, they are celebrating. The team over there is going to be giving players a pack with a bunch of consumables. We're talking mega potions, life powders, and the like, that kind of stuff. That is actually available today. That is not an April Fool's joke, and you can download that up until April 13th. So if you haven't logged in today, that's perfectly fine. You got a little bit longer. Go on, get a bunch of cool stuff as a thanks from their team. Speaking of sales, Rebellion Games' release Atomfall has actually just surpassed 1.5 million players in less than 1 week. I remember thinking that was really cool when I saw the original trailer for it. I'm pretty excited to give that a shot. One really cool fact about 1.5 million players hopping on there, that makes it the most successful launch in Rebellion's 32-year history. So congrats to the team on that, on making a really solid games and getting some kudos. All right, old school Capcom fans, I know you're here. Ace, you were calling us out a little bit earlier. We got a little bit of love this week. Street Fighter 6 is releasing a fighting pass that will cross over with the Rival Schools franchise. I say it's a little bit of love because it's just cosmetics and avatars, but it's a cool nod towards an unexpected throwback. I know you two talked about having a little bit of discussion about this. What do you think about this?
I actually Well, when I saw that pack was actually being released for Street Fighter 6, I figured I'd go ahead, try and log into the game just to see what exactly was going on with it. And the fact that they don't have any of the rival schools games as like one of the playables in their little online arcade lobby, missed opportunity. Look, if you want to see someone or something, actually showing some love and respect towards rival schools, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Community Edition. Like literally, the most recent update for that mod just came out a couple days ago. As it stands, an additional 50 characters have been added to the roster for Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, including the 3 Taiyo High School headliners from rival schools, Batsu, Hinata, and Kyosuke. And somehow, just the work that these folks put in on that mod, all 3 of those characters have their moves and have similar combo routes to their origin game. So
I appreciate you dropping the knowledge, like a little bit of Salt Bay just coming in there and just sprinkling on name dropping. Look at this guy come in here. That's pretty crazy. Well, it's something. Maybe we'll see more from it. Maybe it sells well, but it's kind of a cool nod. I know that I played Rival Schools a little bit after the fact again at the retro store, but I appreciated this style. It was cool to see a nod, but yeah, it kind of is sad that it's only cosmetics and avatars.
Yeah.
Anyway. Path of Exile 2, we've talked about that a little bit here. Dawn of the Hunt, the next update, has actually had some major details shared by the devs this last week, just in case you missed it. Don't forget, it's set for release April 4th. But in this update, players will be getting a new class, 5 new Ascendancy classes, character system expansions, and in-game improvements. So we're going to get some new stuff for Path of Exile 2 here, so that's a lot of fun for some people. We have Ubisoft back in the news, my friends. They're on our list today for 2 reasons. First off, the company has announced a deal to be a new subsidiary, and so a new subsidiary partnership with Tencent. I don't know if you two saw this news when it hit. A lot of people are back and forth on it. It's expected to close at the end of the year. It's valued at $4.3 billion, which is insane. On the back of that, at the same time, Ubisoft stocks are falling like crazy right now. That's the other flip side of it. So not a lot of people have faith in this one. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on. Some internal emails leaked and stuff like that. But they're going to be a subsidiary of Tencent. They still maintain majority of stake in those franchises that they have. I think Ubisoft still has 75% control. And that's good news for them, because the second part of this being in the news is AC Shadows is selling pretty damn well. It's reported to have reached 3 million players already this quick after launch. It's getting really solid reviews. So kind of the give and take of RNGesus, if you will, for Ubisoft this week.
Yeah.
In sadder industry news, new round of layoffs has hit some studios this week. The legendary Myst developer Cyan World announced they're letting go of some employees, which is super, super sad to hear, because they're a long-time studio, my friends. They've been around for about 38 years now by this point. And we talked about it earlier, Eidos, or Eidos, or whatever you want to say, Eidos. Eidos Montreal is also going to be part of these layoffs. So they are not smaller, but the Embracer Back Studio announced that they are doing large-scale layoffs. The studio is known for Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, their support on Tomb Raider. They're also currently supporting Playground Games on the Fable reboot. So as they're trying to scale down, we're trying to figure out what's going to happen to this. That kind of brings into light, speaking of Tomb Raider, Crystal Dynamics. They're in our backyard here in the Pacific Northwest. They also had layoffs this last week. Like other teams, a lot of PR releases are focused on the teams needing to realign their current business needs and kind of focus on their studio's future success. So corporate speak aside, they made those quote-unquote difficult decisions to let talent go. That's the reality of the business right now. It just brings, and the reason I want to bring it up in the news is just to say, this now brings up the total number of confirmed jobs to roughly 1,500 across 50 gaming companies this year, according to GamingLayoffs.com. So it's kind of a crazy thing that's going on in the industry. This expand, contract, we're still seeing a lot of movement. Heart goes out to those people that lost their jobs. Hopefully they can find better places. And, you know, these companies can still have success. This next one on the news hits a little bit closer to my wife's heart. According to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, WB Games has canceled the planned Definitive Edition and the DLC for Hogwarts Legacy. It was supposed to have another 10 to 15 hours of content, in addition to the DLC being available to everyone who already owned the base game. Super crazy for a game that sold 35 million copies. So, on to the sequel, I guess, right? Hurl Abyss is in the news. They have confirmed that the PS4 and Xbox One versions of Black Desert Online will be shutting down on June 26th with the newest update. Data and purchases will still be safe, and it will be transferable to the newer console versions, but they just can't support the old hardware releases anymore. So if you do play on those ones, time to move on to the new consoles if you happen to have them, or hop on PC. CG Projekt Red discussed Witcher 4's release window during their latest earnings call, and while they aren't discussing a specific release date, it was stated multiple times on the call that the game will not release earlier than 2027. So keep sticking around for a little while. It's going to be a bit till we see that. It's quite a big game. Let's try to get some more positive news. Sucker Punch has reconfirmed their 2025 release window for Ghost of Yotei via a post on X by their senior communications manager. So it will be coming out this year. And I have a little something in the rumor mill for you folks about that release date. So stay tuned for that. Just in case you missed it as well, one thing I did want to call out from the Nintendo Direct, I know we'll talk about it here in a little bit, Ace, but Atlus did announce they're remastering 2006's ARPG Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner, which will get new features, overhauled battle system, and will improve the gameplay experience. So kind of a cool shout out for that. All right. Going to transition into the rumor mill a little bit here. So, yes, it's April 1st. I hated looking at the news the last, day, especially, because there's no way to tell if it's real, if it's not. Some of the stuff you see on April 1st, like for April Fool's Day, it's kind of, let's be honest, kind of damn funny to look at. But it's super frustrating, too, for me when I hop on to, Reddit, for example, not realizing it's April 1st and seeing, season 2 of one of my favorite shows is confirmed. And then I realize the date and everyone in chat is melting down. Sucks. But Rumor Mill still got some stuff for you. Same as always, take it as a grain of salt. It's just meant to kind of create a discussion point, talk about some of the stuff that's flying around the industry right now, and let's see how we feel about it. First and foremost, Last of Us is getting a new edition leak. It just came out. There's going to get another edition of Last of Us. So leaker Bill Bilkoon has shared that it is in development and it will get a physical release. There's not a lot of details about it. It's about what's in it, but it has a price of $109.99. So this kind of suggests that it could be a release that has the first 2 games in it. We've seen a lot of remasters come out, but apparently there's a new physical version of Last of Us that's coming out. A lot of people are asking, Last of Us 3 when? Question mark. Are we going to be getting it? Doesn't sound like it. So it looks like we're getting another release of Last of Us, folks. Most likely. Oh, I'm not done speaking about Ghost of Yotei. I remember I called out that earlier. So there's a leaker right now on X named Detective Seeds, and they shared that 2 individuals seem to agree that a release window is pretty soon. And that's what I kind of mentioned before. It's sooner than we may expect. And the person with the spotless track record that kind of shared that information with Seeds said it will be mid to late July. So pretty soon for Ghost of Yotei. And if I remember right, I didn't write it here, but the other person that didn't have as big of a track record that Seeds called out said it was going to be a month or 2 after that. So it's kind of like this release window coming up real damn quick. So it's kind of pointing towards end of July right now is kind of what it's looking like. So we'll see if that rumor comes true, but that's really cool to be getting that so quick, and especially so soon to AC Shadows as well. I mean, we've done the comparisons ourselves on this show, as a lot of people have. So it'll be interesting to see those go head to head and see how Ubisoft can get people back into Shadows if they can maintain that. I have one more from Detective Seeds while we're at it. According to one of their sources, the remake of Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion will be released this week. This week. So, to preface this, multiple users that I've seen on some of the subreddits aren't super high on Seeds just yet, given how like enthusiastic they've been lately, like shouting out leaks from the rooftops, right? However, a shadow drop of this remake has also already been leaked by a more accredited leaker, Nate the Hate. So we won't have long to wait, but apparently it's sounding like there will be a shadow drop, and it could be this week. So we'll find out really quickly here if that's not the case. But it sounds like Oblivion remake's going to be shadow dropping on us very, very soon.
Sure, that's not a April Fool's news.
No. So this was, like as I mentioned, Nate the Hate, the more accredited leaker. He'd already talked about this weeks ago. So Oblivion remake is kind of in the, like, for lack of a better word, the shadows of the gaming industry for a little bit. So we know there's supposed to be an Oblivion, but the drop for Elder Scrolls Oblivion, I looked at the date and it wasn't today. So it wasn't April Fool's. Maybe they got ahead of it a little bit. I think it was a day or two beforehand. So it's close enough for me to be like, but it's been reinforce that we should be seeing it. Whether or not we see it this week is really going to be the biggest tell. Like I said, we'll see what happens, but it's going to be a shadow drop from what we're hearing. So I know that you were talking about. Yeah, it makes sense. So I know we've been talking about Final Fantasy remasters. There's been a lot of stuff. We talked about this, I want to say last month, about a Final Fantasy IX remaster. Well, those rumors are kind of ratcheting up again because a website celebrating Final Fantasy IX's 25th anniversary has launched, surrounded by all of these rumors. Square Enix has already announced a collectibles release this summer and a bunch of collaborations for Final Fantasy IX. So that could be all we get. However, multiple insiders have been claiming a remake in 2026 before this website development. And Nate the Hate again restated on Reddit that the remake is very much real, and he said that today in response to the thread. So it sounds like we will be getting a Final Fantasy IX anniversary. This is remaster or remake. Sorry, using the wrong word there. Don't get me for that, chat. There will be a remake for 9. Might see it this year, but it sounded like more and more likely that game actually does exist. So, we'll see. One more remake for you. So, leaker Ecstasis has shared in a YouTube video that the Persona 4 remake will launch on Xbox Game Pass day 1. So that's going to be a day 1 release for that, which would be a big get for Microsoft, especially for being pretty beloved as well. I'll probably get into it now after all my talk about 5. Next little bit of rumor mill, not to add too much fuel to the fire barrel that is, Overwatch 2 and how the community feels about it. But according to leaker Scavora, the game will be dropping the 2 from its title as leaks about the next season are dropping online. There's been a bunch of skins and discussions happening around the leaks. The skins for the season are seeing the original Overwatch 1 skins renamed in the game UI to just classic, quote unquote, and the Overwatch 2 skins are being changed to Valoris instead. So they're just removing Overwatch 1, Overwatch 2, and calling them just different sets now. Additionally, info on the stadium mode has kind of leaked as well, which details best of 7, 5v5 mode, a third-person cam default that can be swapped to first person at any time, and a MOBA-esque between rounds powers and items purchasing. So kind of a different twist on it. I know a lot of people who are still kind of sticking around with Overwatch as they're trying to bring people back in, or I've been kind of looking forward to this new mode. So we'll see if that holds.
Yeah, and with the whole thing about dropping the 2 from Overwatch, I mean, considering just the progression from, from the original Overwatch to, I guess, new Overwatch now,
Overwatch.
It's been more like an expansion than a straight up sequel.
Right, absolutely, and that's been the big blowback from the community, and that's why I kind of called it a fire barrel of just kind of like a little. I don't want to say anything the work that the devs did was bad, but it's been kind of a flaming trash heap in terms of like community support and all that stuff right now because people are just like, why is this a thing? Like I was still playing Overwatch. Why is 2 here? It stripped things away and made it worse, but I have to play it. I can't play the old one. Like why?
Yeah.
What's going on? So it's hard to win back a community with that for sure. Just kind of an interesting thought that may be a little bit of a reach by the leaker, but it's something that kind of makes sense. You know, they're trying to turn it into like Destiny. It's more of a platform for what they're trying to do. They're trying to retool and bring people back into Overwatch instead of going like, oh, now you're playing 2, which doesn't have the things that were promised. It's a distribution platform kind of feel, you know, new content, new modes. I don't know. James, you're making a face. What do you think?
Well, the first thing for about Overwatch was just like the investment that people made into the game. Like, first of all, they gotta like, if they paid for the first game, they got the Overwatch 2 as the free upgrade, right? Because that's usually how I think how it went, right? They already bought the first game, which had the skins for the first game. So will they get those skins for free? Or they have to rebuy them again? That's kind of unfortunate if they have to. I don't know the details, but that would be unfortunate. That's all I'm saying. But on the positive note, I wanted to kind of mention that like the presence of Marvel Rivals has really kicked in the gear of the Overwatch team. Because when I say what he calls competition breeds innovation, this is a pure example of that, where like they saw Marvel Rivals, they were taking the market share of the Overwatch community, and now Overwatch 2 or whatever you want to call it is forced to make adjustments and make their product better so they can retain those people. And then this is why I love like innovation, right? Because it, like I said, breeds competition, making your content much better. So I'm glad that they exist for both reasons. So
yeah, we'll see if this wins back some hearts and minds, and if they continue kind of like innovating and pulling, we'll have another healthy competition. It's going to be really hard to pull that away from Rivals and what they're doing right now, especially if the Rivals team starts bringing out more of the characters that are on that like community wish list. Like if they're playing all the hits, like people are going to go where the bangers are. Let's be honest. One last little bit of rumor mill. Daniel RPK, a well-known insider, shared on his Patreon, then was reported in the game post that Naughty Dog has a second project in development and that it isn't Last of Us 3. This is a secret project because we already know they're working on Intergalactic right now. The big news about this is that it's already been in development for 3 years. So it's separate from Intergalactic. It's not Last of Us. And it's said to be led by the director of Uncharted Lost Legacy. So no idea what that is, but it sounds like there's something in the works that we don't know about at Naughty Dog. And I don't know, man, you bring in the director of Uncharted, you got me hopeful for what we could do. Maybe a continuation of the Uncharted thing. That's me, wild speculation. Don't believe me at all. Just throwing that out there. I'd love to see what they do with their kid, Cassie, and see like where they can take the story. I've been missing the Uncharted series. That's it for Rumor Mill. That's it for Quick Bites. I don't have an article tonight because instead of an article, we've got more of a retrospective and a future vision. We're switching it up, as GQ said earlier in the day. So for you two especially, put on a little mood music. So we have watched a Nintendo Direct from this last week. Hopefully you did as well. I know, Ace, you've got some ideas on it. But Nintendo has confirmed today that the Nintendo Direct for the Switch 2, tomorrow, 6 a.m. PST. Oh, so if you haven't noticed, you've been living under the rock for the past like 24 hours. We are getting the Nintendo Direct. The specific time has been released. We know it was happening tomorrow, but now it is confirmed. So 6 a.m. PST tomorrow, and they confirmed it will be 1 hour long.
I know, and I'm watching it work.
Yeah. Waking up a little early. Set that alarm, Ace.
I will be in the office at 6.
Perfect. One extra little bonus too for all you Nintendo fans is they actually said their Nintendo Treehouse will also be having content releases. So they will have 2 days. The first day, Thursday, is 4 hours. 4 hours. And the second day on Friday is 3 hours. You're getting 7 hours of Nintendo Treehouse, and they've already confirmed you'll be getting Switch 2 gameplay, gameplay during those. So we're getting gameplay. So Nintendo's rolling the Direct, then we're getting the Treehouse streams, 7 additional hours of content with some Switch 2 stuff. So the next 3 days is going to be pretty lit. If you're a Nintendo fan, if you're an industry fan, I know that I'm going to be tuning in just to see what kind of stuff they have. But instead of the article, that's why I decided to talk about this week. Let's talk about the Nintendo Switch. Let's talk about the Switch 2. Like you said, we're switching it up. So let's take a step back and just talk about the Switch 1. Just a couple facts. The Switch 1 was released March 3rd, 2017 for $299. It was followed by the Lite in 2019 and then their OLED version in 2021. One really cool fact, as of the end of 2024, 151 million units have shipped for the Switch. A significant amount of consoles. In case we forget as well, the Nintendo Direct for the original Switch was 1 hour. And in that showcase, they showed off ARMS, Splatoon 2, Fire Emblem Warriors, Octopath Traveler, Shin Megami Tensei, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Super Mario Odyssey, and Breath of the Wild. So, looking back at the original Switch, let's talk a little bit about it. Like, what are some pros? What are some cons? What are your memories with the OG Switch before we kind of jump into this exciting bit of the Switch 2 coming out tomorrow? Ace, first up with you, man. You sound like you had some ideas.
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, with the Nintendo Direct that happened yesterday, I feel like this, I guess you could say this console generation, really, because frankly, you could say technically that this generation started back on that day in March when the Nintendo Switch was announced and when it released. But I feel like with the games that were shown off in this past Nintendo Direct, that I think Nintendo was trying to send off this first system with a bang. I mean, they finally, in case of emergency, break glass, they hit that big red button for Metroid Prime 4, and it looks fantastic. But between that and the other big one for me was actually Marvel Galactic Invasion, because it's Tribute Games. It's the team behind TMNT Shredder's Revenge coming back with a Marvel title, and that beat them up. Like, there's already been analysis, videos going up talking about, the inspiration that the team has been taking behind, like certain animations and certain sprites. And yes, it's Marvel. They've already shown off Captain America, Storm, Wolverine, Venom, and Spider-Man, classic characters from Marvel versus Capcom and MVC2. So you can already tell that, they're going in, they're taking inspiration for sprites from those fighting games. And the game is looking, again, it's looking like a day one purchase for me, whether it's on the Switch or on the PS5. But just, it seemed like compared to previous Nintendo Directs, there were few titles. But again, these were few titles with a lot of quality behind them, and something to send off something to send off the Switch, or at the very least herald that next generation of the Switch. Because there's also been talk going around that certain Switch titles may have Switch 2 enhanced versions thereof. So a Switch 2 enhanced Metroid Prime 4, for example.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the rumors around the Switch 2 is kind of like that end discussion point as we jump into the Switch 2 side of things. But as far as the Switch 1, pluses and minuses, just I know for me, and then I wrote a couple notes on this, for me, looking at it, having worked at a video game store, I'm looking at it, I'm going best family friendly titles, strong first party game lineup, the innovation, the portability, the controllers, the innovation behind that and how they're brought into the game. And of Nintendo consoles, this had by far the most AAA title ports to it. The negative side being the stick drift issue. Massive on the Switch. You're spending that much money on those controllers, and that stick drift issue was prevalent. It was all over the place, and it sucked to deal with. And you were just sorry, you just gotta buy a new one. And for the most part, they were sold only in pairs.
I I cannot tell you how many times while I was working for Nintendo customer service, just how many orders that how many calls that I had handled that were, filling out forms or getting repairs set up for, for stick drift. I mean, it eventually got to a point where it's like, the problem was so prevalent that Nintendo basically just said, you know what, if if your Joy-Cons are experiencing drift on the analog sticks, just give us a call, give us the information. We can assist you in getting, you send us the gear, we will repair it and send it back to you at no cost.
Yeah, it was super good that they did that, but it was kind of like the fact that it's there in the first place, kind of thing. As a consumer, it's certainly annoying. Like you said, though, like plenty of great people behind the scenes doing work to get that figured out. And I know for us, especially, we talked to, for James and myself, a lot of people would be coming in upset about that. And it's like, it's not our fault, dude. Like, it was sold by Nintendo. Call them. Negatives, the stick shift, like I said, the cost of the console versus the performance you got out of it. It was definitely a weaker bit of hardware compared to what was on the market. The battery life to start to was kind of a big issue. The cost of their older titles was something that still sticks with me, because a lot of their first party games are still basically full price through the entire lifespan of the system. There's not multiple Mario games until recently, because you had Mario Odyssey for the longest time, and that is still pretty close to full price. Like there's not that usual as the lifespan of the system goes on, those original titles, the barrier to entry is lower for people. They just held value, and it's still that way. That's something that's super surprising to me, and I think kind of kept people like myself who were kind of looking at it as hey, maybe I can finally get into this. It's something that concerns me about the Switch too. I don't expect the Switch 1 or its games to drop in price. So I'm still going to be paying as much as I am until Nintendo themselves brings down the price, but they don't really have a reason to at this point. As well as the bare bones online play. Those are my pluses and minuses. But James, I want to hear what you think, man. Switch 1, do you have any memories of it? Any particular games or your experience with that generation as a whole?
In that generation of consoles, I bought the Switch the last of it. I bought a PS4, I got an Xbox, right? And I got the Switch last, and primarily because I wanted to play some unique games that were on there, and also something for travel. I travel very, very little, but when I wanted to game outside of the house, right? And that was the purpose of that. It was more utilitarian, if anything else. Kind of wanted to on a positive note, I'd say it does the job pretty well. And you're right, it is a little bit dated. When I'm in the eShop, the thing just lags, right? And it's just so slow in the eShop. Which why? If anything, right? Why is it slow in the eShop? It's just screens, But yeah, it's just definitely a dated machine. I think for when it first came out, it was so cool, the fact that you could play it on the go and then put it to your TV, in one sitting. And pretty much this is what I thought the Wii U should have been in the first place. And I think they finally got the hit and was this is what we should have done for the Wii U.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that's one of the most innovative pieces of equipment for video games out there. Negative, I'd say you're right. I'd say the due to its cost of keeping everything microscopic, stick drift will be stick drift and stuff overheating and stuff like that will occur because of keeping the cost down, right? So it's stuff like that. It was cheap parts, or they will engineer in a way where they won't spend too much money because it will be an expensive design, right? So and I think they did what they can for the amount of budget that they have with it, and clearly they made more than enough money to get it back. And to address the cost of Switch games, I think Nintendo is very smart when it comes to keeping their first party games the same price, because it holds their value really well. It makes them very valuable. And the reason for that is because you can't get it anywhere else. You have to play it on Switch. And that's they know that. They're well, you want to play it, where else are you going to play it? On PC? Yeah, nah, that's funny. You have to buy full price, play it on the Switch, stuff like that. So I think they know what they're doing with that. And of course, those games are very, I think they hold a certain standard very well. That's why when the new Pokemon game came out, they were like, "What is this? This doesn't feel like a Nintendo game, right?" Because there was a lot of bugs in it. Because Nintendo games are known to be like super polished and very like just finished, very finished, right? So, good memories of the Switch. I personally can't. I don't feel like I've maximized my investment on the Switch. But at the same time, I'm happy when I purchased. I personally have the OLED version. I waited for that to come out. And like when when I'm playing a game that can't be played on the PS4 or the Xbox or the PC, I play it on the Switch. So and I try to get games that I would buy if I were to have a Steam Deck also. That put them on instead.
That's a very interesting space for us to be in nowadays, because this was like portable gaming before it was cool, essentially, is the note I kind of left myself, because now we have, the Steam Deck, we've got Xbox coming out with a handheld system, PlayStation has that portable thing that connects to your PlayStation 5, and like the ROG Ally, like portable gaming has become more of a thing, and it makes that Switch that much more valuable. It's part of the reason, like, I don't know. For me, again, the cost of those games, I absolutely agree with you. It's all about the fact that Nintendo knows what they're doing with that, right? And they know the value of their games. But for me, like 5 years on, the same game still full price. I'm like, man, this is like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get into it. And it wasn't until, to be honest, it wasn't until this last like 6 months or so, as my wife and I are talking about, having a kid and having a console that we can play together, and then have one around for the kid as well. Like I get the value of it now, especially the portable. I'm not someone who is really on the portable gaming side of things. When I want to play a game, I'm down on my PC, I'm down on my console, on my big screen. I am here to sit and play a game. But when we went to Oregon this last week, I remember thinking like I would have been really cool on the plane to just have that to play together, kind of thing. Like it clicked then. It just wasn't for me in the past. That's why now I'm looking at this with that hindsight and going like, man, if it was more cost effective for me to get into it now, I absolutely would, because there is value there for me now. But as we're talking about the Switch 2 coming out and the fact that it hasn't dropped in price and it's probably not for a little bit, it's like, okay, let's talk about the Switch 2 kind of thing. So any last minute stuff about the Switch 1 before we hop off to the Switch 2? I know that I did want to bring up the top 5 releases, but Ace, if you have something, man, hop in.
Yeah, and honestly for me, it's just the fact that even though for a while I did originally have a Switch, I didn't really play it that much. I've been getting more into it recently now that I've gotten my hands on the OLED model. And, it's like I'm finally getting the chance. I'm finally having access to these games that I've been wanting to get into, but largely couldn't because, they were still on that particular console. I mean, probably the one game I could think of that I really wanted to play that was that was Switch exclusive, that I got the chance to do so because it eventually ported over to Steam, was Daemon X Machina.
Surprised it wasn't Astral Chain.
I wish Astral Chain made it over to PC, but I did make sure to grab a copy once I got my Switch. But again, just the fact that it's kind of a late to the party arrival for me, but still very much appreciating that portability, especially since I take the system with me to work, get in some game time on my breaks. I'm now seeing more and more of the value of the form factor of that system, and I'm hoping they use that as a solid foundation to build on that for the Switch 2. I'm also still in the camp that with the evergreen pricing of especially of their first party titles, it's making it not as cost effective to get into it. Like if I didn't have the income that I do,
right, to get
if I
into
didn't
it,
have the income that I do, I wouldn't be picking up as many games as I have.
Yeah, I think it's the support and the cost benefit value for me as a player. You both bring up good points because, like you said, it was that reiteration of the cost to get into it now is like still really really high. It's that evergreen kind of like price to it. And as James brought up before, it holds its value for good reason. I was just looking at the top release for the Switch 1 in terms of sales was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It sold over 200, or sorry, it sold over 67 million copies, just that game. My issue is Mario Kart 8 was a Wii U title that came out in 2014. And Deluxe was just the Switch version that came out in 2017. But we're still on Mario Kart 8. And there's not a ton of DLC out there for it. So still for me, it's like, it's great that we had that game, and it is a good game. It's one of the ones I've been playing recently when I borrowed a Switch from my buddy and my wife played it with me. But it's still just that one and still just the same races over and over again now. And it's just like, I'm not seeing the cost benefit for me to pay full price and get this game I've already played a few times and I've seen everything it has to offer. So it's more so that kind of thing in my head. Again, there's arguments for both sides. I'm not saying anything against that, just more so like that's what I'm kind of like bringing into this like conversation. To round out the last of the top 5, Animal Crossing New Horizons was second with 47 million, Super Smash Ultimate 35 million, Breath of the Wild 32 million, and Super Mario Odyssey 29 million. All right. Switch 2's coming. We know that. We know for sure the direct is tomorrow morning. We mentioned 6 a.m. PST, bright and early. Start watching it. The company confirmed those Treehouse showcases will have hands-on gameplay, which is great. We did see during the Nintendo Direct last week that Metro Prime 4 Beyond, we got to see some gameplay of that, and we know now there will be Switch 2 editions of games, like Ace said, thanks to the fine print that's on the digital cart part of the presentation, if you didn't notice. So not only are we getting those games, there's going to be Switch 2 editions of those games, and we've been hearing some rumors about when you're trying to do that digital swap between the two, you can do that from Switch 1 to Switch 2, but you won't be able to do it with Switch 2 specific games back to the Switch 1. It's got to be those editions. You got to watch out for that. So just a little bit of interesting fine print on there, just something to be aware of. You might have to buy multiple copies of the game if you didn't have the one. But I think that the sharing factor is a really cool idea. I like the idea of just kind of hitting that button, connecting with the other Switch, and you've got to borrow it. The 14-day like borrow like library borrow thing is interesting. It's nice that you can get it back if someone forgets to give you the card back kind of thing, right? But the flip side of that is, hey, I want to borrow it again. So do you have to like restart the game again? Does it save it locally? I'm sure it does, but just something to kind of think over. A little bit of rumors and leaks going into this before I open up to the panel to hear what they want to say about the Switch 2. An exclusive from Insider Gaming has detailed that retailers are expecting they will run out of pre-order units on day 1. And that's thanks to internal emails that have been leaked and documents that have been sent to them. Not surprising, we kind of knew that was going to happen. The tricky part behind this is like when those pre-orders are going to open. So there was a Best Buy Canada leak that had revealed that they'll go live with pre-orders on the 2nd. But that post has been pulled down. So maybe during the Direct was the original thing. The internal info for the company that Insider Gaming got a hold of is a large retailer in the US, wasn't named, but it's set to go live with pre-orders for them on April 9th. So again, the Best Buy Canada thing said the 2nd, which is tomorrow, but the blog post that they had for that was taken down. So that's what we're looking at. Those same documents also said from that retailer that the Switch 2 is scheduled to be released in June. Now we're going to find out tomorrow morning when it's going to be happening, but it could be releasing that soon, and pre-orders may happen in the next week. It kind of depends. Those leaked documents kind of said that was a timer. Once the Nintendo showcase happens tomorrow, there's a timer, and on the 9th, that's when pre-orders go live. So again, we'll see when that happens, but just something to be aware of if you're looking to get a hold of these. We already know that Nintendo's been shipping in consoles ahead of time to meet the demand, but they're still expecting full on, because of the allocations, to completely pre-order out their stuff in the first day that it's open. Also, according to multiple sources now, the Switch 2 will launch its games in a 3-phase strategy. So their strategy is phase 1 is going to be that launch window right out of the gate, and that's going to be first-party only titles. Phase 2, which will be showing up from around October to November, will be the third-party studios. And this is kind of on the back of John Lindemann at Digital Foundry reporting that many developers still didn't have Switch Switch 2 dev kits when GDC was happening. So he was there on the ground at GC, was hearing from a lot of third-party developers that they didn't even have Switch 2 dev kits yet. So Nintendo may have been super selective on who gets those kits. Apparently, Embracer Group didn't get a single one at the time because Nintendo deemed them too chaotic with all their studio closures. So there may have been concerns about like Switch dev kits getting out there into the wild kind of thing. So it's not too surprising.
I'll say this: if there is one thing about Nintendo, and again, this again is coming from the perspective of someone who has worked at the very least adjacent to them. If there is one thing about Nintendo as a company, they do not court controversy. They do everything they can to avoid it. So something like, what's been going on with Embracer Group, with the closures and the acquisitions, just the rapidly changing structure of Embracer Group, it's not stable. So you can definitely expect Nintendo to go, we'll circle back around to y'all later.
Right. And again, this is all stuff we're just hearing from insiders. It's hearsay kind of stuff, but it does kind of make sense, at least with the Embracer Group thing. Whether or not the three-phase strategy is true, it's a little tough to say. But the fact that multiple smaller devs have said, we never got a Switch 2 dev kit, it kind of lends credence to this, like, kind of delay where they want to showcase all those first party things. I just remember the Switch 2 showcase, or sorry, the Switch 1 showcase lineup that I mentioned, how many first party titles were like the bangers right out of the gate they wanted to push out there. Phase 3 would be all the games released during the holiday period. So just kind of that tiered release. Some analysts have kind of pushed back on that because, like, as a third party studio, if you're larger, why would you wait? You want it there day one kind of thing. But if Nintendo is really restricting those dev kits, at least to like smaller third-party teams, it does kind of lend credence to that. We may not get that third-party support right out of the gate. There's going to be that little bit of a lag as these teams get their dev kits and port stuff over or build games for it. Yep. An FCC filing seems to confirm that the Switch 2 Pro controller will be joining the current age, and they'll be getting a headphone jack. Hey. Welcome to the current age, Nintendo.
Is this in the console now, or what?
So we'll see what happens with that, but it was an FCC filing, so we'll finally get that headphone jack. Hooray for our third-party headphones. Looking forward to it. A trusted insider, Secret Boy, confirms that the console will have an LCD screen. It will support HDR and run at 120 hertz. So it's definitely an upgrade over the standard Switch, but probably not as good as that OLED. So it's kind of like walking that ground. However, 120 hertz, that's going to look great. The frame rates are going to look great. Some of these newer AAA titles will be pretty solid. Ecstasis is back on my list here. Sources say that one of the functions of the C button, because we know there's a C button now on there, some of the pictures they've released, is to connect the Switch to the Switch 1, and that the Switch 1 can be used as a controller or screen for Switch 2 games. Kind of similar to what we're seeing.
So they're kind of so it's like they're taking the Switch, and then they're taking some of the concepts of what they were working with the Wii U and like kind of mashing them together.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And again, these are just sources, so take it as a grain of salt. But it would make sense for what they're doing, and the fact we already know you can connect and share games across. Like, there would be no reason why you can't just connect and use it as a secondary screen. They've done that before with so many things. Technologies there. So this a little salt on top of there. So Ecstasis does have a strong record of predictions, so it's seen as reliable. He also suggested in the same YouTube video that Elden Ring will have a port, and it's currently in the works for the Switch 2, and also hinted at Tekken 8 being ported. So just think about, I mean, the data, we already know a lot about like the processor that's inside the Switch 2. You can look it up at Wikipedia. There's no reason it can't run those games. The quality is going to be the biggest thing, like how that port's going to play out. But there's no reason why those games can't be played on the Switch 2. So if those also are true, it sounds like we're going to get some pretty interesting ports as well, if they have the dev kits, right? Anyway, that's the rumors and stuff. We'll see tomorrow morning how much of this stuff shakes out. But for you two, with the Switch 2 information landing, and then potentially that console landing in just a couple months, like, What are you two feeling about the Switch 2? Do you have any of your own like quote unquote predictions, but just more so what you're kind of looking for out of the Switch 2 showcase tomorrow morning?
Well, as far as the Switch 2 showcase, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing like what they announce as far as like which games are basically going to be, having that, cross-gen flow over from the 1 to the 2. Again, I have no doubt in my mind that Metroid Prime 4 is definitely going to be one of those that has a Switch 2, enhanced version. But again, I'm looking forward to seeing again just how they build on the form factor and the architecture, how they build on the Switch 1 for this, for this new iteration. And I don't know, I honestly get this feeling that it may be one of those things where the Switch 2 showcase hits and there's going to be a lot of titles in addition to the system itself where they say pre-orders go live now, or Switch 2 will be available at the end of the showcase. I feel like it's going to be just a straight up, shock to the system. That, just sudden bolt that's like, you know what, that welcome to the next level. This starts now.
They can't say that, man. They might get sued. Sega has entered the chat.
Right? Sega Sunshiro will show up and body slam.
Oh, God. I would pay to see that, though.
Same. But yeah, it's definitely going to be like, this is definitely going to be that slow stop at the top of the first climb on that roller coaster before you hit that first drop and everything just, starts going at a rapid pace as far as information coming out, titles, timelines for release, timelines for pre-orders. I mean, the wave is here and it's going to hit hard starting tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And same as we said before, just definitely like if you don't see something in that first showcase, don't sweat it. You got 7 additional hours of Treehouse game stuff that they're going to be releasing those hands-on things with the games. You'll get more information. You'll get some more. If you don't see that like release date that you were looking for, a little bit more of that gameplay, you have 2 more days of stuff where you can see that. So this is a big platform for them to do this with. So I'm actually super excited for that. This is something a little bit different, right? You don't just get the showcase and then a trickle of, information. You're getting something they've built up and you're getting 7 more hours of just like, hey, let's just really look at this stuff.
I mean, the way they got the content all laid out as far as, the showcase tomorrow and then the Treehouse stuff over the next couple of days, it's almost like we're on the floor of E3.
Hey man, and shout out to them. Like the leaks and rumors on this stuff, there hasn't been a lot. There's been stuff lately is like leading up to this, but there hasn't been this like big like explosion of like you can expect it on this day and all this stuff. Nintendo kept this really close to the vest. So hats off to them. The hype for it's even higher because of it. James, what do you think?
All right, I took some notes here because there's a lot. Well, not a lot, but I wanted to cover some of the things you guys covered. All right, so the first thing is like, do we know how much it is?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. And there's been a lot of rumors out there about it, but right now no one knows. We'll find first thing tomorrow. I think what people were kind of pointing towards was $4.99.
Okay. I can see that. It's probably going to be designed to compete with like the Steam Deck type, handhelds. Not exactly the same, but close enough. Just for that price. So speaking of price, the first thing I started considering was scalpers. So how do they have a strategy on how to combat scalpers on this? Because the first time they did this with the Switch, nobody had one because all the scalpers bought everything out. So do you know any news on how they're planning on like securing these for the public, not for just the general scalpers?
Nope. And I think that's still going to be a problem no matter what. The only thing I'd say is because they've played this so close to the vest, everyone's going to be finding out at the same time. And the fact that they've already brought in so many consoles to the country to prep for this, it kind of lends credence to the fact that they're going to be going through so many retailers. So there's going to be a lot of different places to get it.
Sure.
So kind of look at it as, look at your top choice and then have a backup and then another backup. But I fully expect it. Like there's so many scalpers out there, they're going to get it everywhere.
Yeah, well, we also have the option to be in store now, unlike before. So limited one per client or whatever would help, or like whatever. So that was a big
And
one.
that'll be down to each individual retailer too. They
Correct,
might
correct.
put that caveat. Yeah.
But that was the history of the Wii, from what I recall. The other thing too is we've seen some leaks online on what this looks like, but do you think this will be like the Wii U all over again? Will boomer gamers be like, I don't understand the difference because they look exactly the same? What is it?
I don't think so, because they literally put the number 2 next to it. Unlike the Wii U, which was just like a what is this system kind of thing. It didn't make any sense. This is just literally the Switch 2. It does look similar, but at the same time, like there's enough different about it. And that's one of the reasons I was kind of concerned about the price of the Switch 1, is they're just going to keep that value high because they're all going to be so similar. And the fact that you will be able to trade games, like that's just what it's going to be for a little bit. I'm sure it'll be confusing to some people, but the way that they've rolled this out, the hype that's behind it, the availability of it, I think it's more so going to come. It's what we dealt with when the Wii U came out, right? We were behind the counter trying to explain it to parents. It's going to be that again, but I think there's enough differentiation, and also like there's enough of a tweak on the design. It's all black and they put the colors behind the joysticks. It's enough of a difference that it's still going to have you rely on retailers, in my opinion. But I think it's better than the Wii U. I don't think it's going to be something like that, because that was so out of left field, and the screen controller thing from the Wii U was the main reason that so many people were confused about it, because they didn't know if that was the console or if they could pull it separate. Like that was the big concern. The Switch is the Switch. It's just more of it.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one, I think the whole dev kit thing, I was like thinking a little bit more about that. Nintendo is really known for this little logo right here, Jet. I don't know if you guys see this bottom corner. Nintendo seal of quality, right? And as of my little experience with the eShop, there's a lot of shovelware in there. There's a bunch. So I don't know if they're trying to like kind of curb that this time around or whatnot, but I think it's a smart decision for those that are like, hey, you got to get your shit together, and then we'll send you the dev kits, right? Because we want you to focus on whatever the reason is. But I think I'm kind of happy that they're being a little more stingent on it, just to increase the value and the quality of games out there, and I guess also to validate the price that they charge also, right? So that's a good one as well. So that's good on that. It's just historically Nintendo's known for that, and because of the era with Atari, right? That's why they had the Nintendo seal of approval and stuff like that. So I think they're still going through their roots, and they're like really showing that in modern times. But as far as the Switch 2 goes, like I'm not going to be there day one. I am excited to learn a little bit more about it, but when somebody buys a Switch 2, it's going to be because they have a Switch 1 and they want to upgrade. But I feel like it's not going to be like, oh, I don't play Mario games. I have no reason to buy it, right? Because I'm not going to play Tekken 8 on the Switch. I'm going to play it on my Steam Deck or my console, right? So it's stuff like that. And I think that's the other decision. Why did they put the dev kits for a third party a little bit slower, right? Because they want to prioritize those first party sales in general. That's just my guess. But I think it's all going to be good. I think this is what people have been waiting for this whole time. I think they're delivering on all the things that the Switch 1 came short. And they're going, hey, we're probably going to, if the stick drift comes back out, that's on them, right? But I think they heard everybody's like, everyone's complaints, and we're like, all right, we'll make it better. We'll make it more competitive to the modern hardware. Because I heard a lot of influencers say that like if the Switch 1 just had modern hardware in it, they'd still be playing the Switch 1 because they love it so much. So, and I think that's a good thing to hear. If they love every aspect of it, but they just wanted a more modernized like hardware behind it, right? So awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Any predictions on games you think will be there? Are we going to get a Mario Kart 9 after my rant on 8? Like, has it been long enough?
If anything, there'll be like a Mario Kart like 8 Infinity or something. Like they'll probably do something like that, like a higher res version. They're doing the GTA thing. They're gonna milk it until it's
Mario Kart 8 Online Infinity.
And that's just it, though. It's not Mario Kart 8 has for a long time now since ceased being a game so much as a platform.
Sure.
Just like with GTA.
Let's call it Mario Kart Online.
I'm for sure we're gonna get a new Mario game. That's like staple, right? Maybe a new Zelda announced, right? But I think Metroid is trying to take the spotlight this time around because people have been waiting for that.
Yeah, definitely a new Metroid. Personally, even if Mario Kart is a platform now, but they still need something hard hitting as far as a new racing game. I think we might perhaps see F-Zero on the Switch too.
Nintendo hates F-Zero. Don't country on that. they hate F-Zero. The one thing I'd really like to see, and I think I'm really curious about, is remember when that Nintendo World thing we were talking about, how there has an online infrastructure, like an online thing. What if they did Super Mario World, where like you're in the world of Super Mario, you make your own me, you're in Super Mario, right? That'd be super cool. Nice callback to the Super Nintendo era, right? And that would fall right into the whole like come play on our platform, right? And then it'd be like
a sort of upgraded, like a sort of upgraded Miiverse.
Yeah, well, like Super Mario World sounds awesome.
Yes.
Right, and there's already been conversations about what the Nintendo Campus is. Like, it sounds like an online platform.
Oh, that's right, the Nintendo Campus.
Right, so that can easily lead into that, or have like their own digital platform where people can choose to launch into those other worlds, kind of thing. Who knows, right? But that fits, that tracks. I could see that. And to be clear, like what I was talking about earlier with the dev kits, Nintendo is being super selective. So there's still like large third party teams getting those and making games. So we might see some of those tomorrow, but it's going to be from the big guys or very select, like you said, the Nintendo seal, their stamp on it. But we'll see how well that prediction for the phased strategy ends up showing out. May be a little bit, it's not going to be just a hard line. There'll probably be some blending there.
There'll be some nuance for sure that we're not, but I think it's smart of them too. It's almost like you're not part of this club yet, right? And you have to kind of show why we would give you one. And I think that's good instead of just, lack of a better term, whoring it out to everybody else. So
like you got to prove you have what it takes to be part of Club Nintendo.
I need that clip from Night at the Roxbury, Michael Clark Duncan going, it's like, you're not on the list.
Not on the list.
There you go.
Not on the list, champ. That's great. I think I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to see what news are out there. It's always fun to see all the new Nintendo stuff come out because they're very unique, right? And they're very in love with their own IPs, which is what I like about Nintendo. Now they're very aggressive about other people loving their IPs because they're the people will show up at your house, right? But like and that's why they love their IPs, right? Because they work hard on them, and hopefully this is my idea. They put a lot of heart into it, and so to see other people like take it, they get offended by it, and that's why they're so aggressive about taking those people down. So that's where I'm coming from, right? I'm sure there's more to it.
The devs of PAL World.
There's just more to it than that. I'm sure. But yeah, that's super cool.
Well, that's what I got, guys. Appreciate you chatting to me about that.
Well, fantastic, man. Well, of course, we went a little bit over because that's what we do here when somebody misses a week. We got to catch up. Right?
I apologize.
But hey, you made up for it with all the good content, man. A lot of good discussion tonight. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to take a rain check on the Switch X for next week. So I also had something going on too for the rhetorical, but we'll save that for next time as well. But yeah, otherwise, guys, I don't know how's the chat looking. Everybody catered to and they're good there.
Yeah, excellent responses and conversation from everybody in the chat. Andre, Scorpio, Jagos, always glad to have y'all, participating in class.
Yeah, and that's
is important.
Yeah, we're paying attention. Trust me, we're there. So, so if you're new here, we have our show Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Our content just varies per stream every time, which is great, right? So it forces you to show up.
Yeah.
So, but we tend to go a little bit over because we do have a lot of content, but the conversations are great. That's all that matters, right? And so if you guys want to check us out on youtube.com/GQAzndood or also on Twitch at twitch.tv/GQAzndood as well. I know, Asen, you have your channel too. You have paired it up, but go ahead and give them your links there.
Yep. For those of you that haven't made it to class through my channels, please please make sure to look me up on both YouTube and Twitch at Blazing Ace Nelson. So the name tag right down there, but it's all one word, Blazing Ace Nelson. You can hit me up on Twix at Blazing Ace Nelson. The G is silent this time. But yeah, just if you want to keep abreast of my, practically daily gaming content between streams, reviews, discussion, look me up on those channels, hit me up on Twitter. We can talk games, we can talk the industry, we can talk and the craft. I'm always down for some conversation. And plus, I've got a little something in the works that I'm working out the skeleton for it. And GQ, if you got a little bit of time after this, I want to run that by you too. If you haven't seen it in the Discord, but it's definitely much like Nintendo with the Switch is moving into their next generation, their next iteration. I'm making moves to move into that sort of next phase of my content as well. So please, by all means, keep an eye out for that. It's something that I really hope to, make sure to add as a supplement to the Gaming Academy in order to help improve things here as well as on my own channel. So definitely.
Are you becoming the Dynasty Warrior? Is that what's happening?
Something like that. But
something like that. Okay.
But watch this space.
Ace Dynasty. That's what it is.
There we go.
How about you? What about you, Nick? What you got? Anything?
Oh man, you find me here. Tell your friends. We'd love to have more people in chat. Yeah, come on back. Now, the reason I do this is because we were talking about how much we love the gaming community, just sharing the stories and the memories that we had. That's why the gaming history is such a prominent part of the show. So if you've got friends, I know a couple people said they have a blast when they're here. Tell your friends. We'd love to have them part of the chat. If you have someone that has stories they share with you, we want that in chat as well. It's so cool to see just people oh man, I remember that game, or oh man, I remember that artwork. That's why we do this, and that's why it's so much fun. I talk about the news and stuff just because I'm have been in the industry connected to some of that stuff, so it's fun for me as well. But yeah, you'll just find me here. I've got my own handles and stuff. You can find me the same everywhere. My handle's right there. It's what I use on everything. You can also find me on Twitch, but only really here. I don't really stream on my own. Haven't really had the time for it with the kid on the way. Don't think it's going to happen, but I mean, always happy to be a part of those conversations, hop on and be a part of it. So shoot me a message.
Unlike us, chat, Nick has a life. Right, so.
I do, but man, this is what I do to stay connected to something I'm passionate about. So this is where my outlet is when I don't have time to play Metaphor.
It's true. It's the same thing for me. When I'm not streaming on Thursdays, I'm here chatting with you guys because otherwise I just world
literally chat, not to dox anything, but James and I are practically neighbors. We live in the same building. We've known each other a long time. We see each other going to work and coming home from work, and it's I gotta do this thing and I gotta go to work tomorrow. We're not oh, what are you playing? It's this is the only time we're hey man, what are you up to? So this is a chance for us to reconnect with that and stay connected to that.
Yeah.
And by all means, please do not forget when we say class participation is important, that also includes, those of you that have been in the community that have, joined us on the show, or, different podcasts, different broadcasts that we've done, when Blue joined us for E3, or again, a few weeks back when we had Oliver on, that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing we're trying to work with here, even within this structure of the show.
I had a blast with Oliver. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great. That's great. Yeah, and I think once we have more guests and more people jump on, with your guys' help, of course, hopefully you guys share the VOD and tell everybody about us, because Oliver says he loves our show, and we talk about things that other influencers don't talk about. We focus on the content instead of the drama. So, and I think that's I never thought about it that way, but that's more constructive than anything, because there's a lot of rage bait out there and drama inducing channels, right? Of course, but we're trying to focus on the stuff that we love and kind of moving beyond the drama and kind of focusing on that. So yeah,
it's bringing that behind the counter thing that we had working at those game stores and just bringing it to a platform where we can just continue that vibe. almost. So it's fun. It's a blast, and tons of experiences, each in our own right. We've sold plenty of games to Ace as well, so this is just a continuation of that. Hey man, buy this game, you'll like it. It's not just Dynasty Warriors.
Okay. But he had his own universe, right? He ran the arcade, so his content's totally different, right? It's an era that it's now like, it's extinct. Right? There's no really arcades in the West anymore. And if there are, the arcades are very elaborate. They're not just like sit down and put a quarter in, right? You gotta get a card, you gotta load it, right? So it's insane how advanced the things have become, right? So it's like, for Ace to kind of live through that and to kind of experience those things, it's good to some people that are maybe like young on our channel might not even know those existed, right?
It would be fun to do a breakdown one of these weeks where we talk about like those changes in the arcade, because although we worked at a store that had an arcade part of the business, for my last job, I would go on site to events, and I went to GameWorks for the first time in years, and just like the changes that have happened there, even in the like years that I've been away from it, like it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I find that I'm in kind of a unique position, because there are actually two industries where I've been directly involved in, like, the last days of a particular technology, or the last day, the changing of the guard. Because not only, the, coin operated arcade machines, but also with the movie theater industry as well. I was working at the Bellisphere Theater when 35 millimeter film was being phased out. So having that sort of
dude, you just dated yourself so hard.
But having that sort of connection, being like a living bridge between that previous era and coming into the present, it's a really fun perspective to have, and I'm always willing to share.
Yeah, maybe we could have like a little segment called Ace's Place where you talk about arcades and stuff like that.
Ace's Place.
Yeah, so
it's like Mr. Rogers, but for Ace.
Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys. It's good to have everybody back on the panel back here, and of course, next time we'll cover my segment of the rhetorical. And I think you guys will enjoy it, because I always thought about this, like, this needs to happen. It hasn't happened yet, and that's why it's a rhetorical, right? So it should be good. And of course, play more Monster Hunter out there until the new DLC drops. Get good, because Capcom has heard our wishes, and they're bringing down the heat with these rank 8 monsters. So
that new DLC is dropping on the 4th. We'll pretty much have to talk about it next week.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, Garo's coming out this month as well. We're thinking about doing something for that, but we don't know yet. We'll keep you guys, involved and informed on our socials. So that's it, guys. I'm gonna pop on some Dudley music, and y'all chill, and y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Okay.
Class dismissed.
Peace.
Appreciate it, guys. Well. Although the music.
All right. I'm going to be on the camera with him just for a couple more seconds, just to, run by him what I was working